We're unmuted, okay. The October 29th regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen is called to order. I'm first Selectman Christine Vitale. I'm joined by Selectman Marcy Spolier, and Selectwoman Brenda Kupchak is joining us via Zoom. Ask you to all please rise for Superintendent Testani, would you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda, we have the Director of Operations for the Fairfield Public Schools and Superintendent Testani here, as well as Bond Counsel Attorney John Saxstrom joining us locally, I believe, as well as Board of Ed Chair Jeff Peterson is remote. So can I have a motion to hear, consider, and adopt a bond resolution entitled "A Resolution Appropriating $2,300,000 for costs associated with the Fairfield Ward High School Artificial Turf Project and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such an appropriation."
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Rapageorge.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the project you have before you is to install approximately 80,000 square feet of artificial turf field at Ward High School campus. The purpose of this request is to improve player safety while giving the athletes of Fairfield a competitive edge, keeping them in line with other districts across the state. The project pricing takes into account the town's restrictive use of certain types of artificial fill for turf fields, and we've worked out a price that includes a root zone 3D blend system with a Brock SPF 17 shock pad. The budget also includes the removal of some materials that would be classified as unsuitable but not considered contaminated materials. By making this switch from a grass field to an artificial field, it reduces the manpower for maintenance from cutting, mowing, trimming. The only routine maintenance for an artificial turf field is GMAX testing, along with sweeping and maintenance and cleaning of the field. Once installed, is out of the warranty phase. The district currently has a standard set up with a proprietary company that comes in, does GMAX testing and backfill replacement where needed, and inspects and removes and sews any torn seams, and also maintains the field with a cleaning process that's proprietary to their company. So this field would be moved into that classification once approved and installed. You have before you the 14 points, and I'm happy to answer any questions for this project.
Any questions?
So what's the general lifespan of a turf field like this?
Approximately 15 to 20 years on this. This is a Brock pad system as opposed to a turf, as opposed to a chrome rubber field. So it's supposed to be a longer lifespan, so we're hoping to see longer lives out of it.
Is there a reason we bond it for 20 years if it's a 15 to 20-year lifespan? Like, that we don't take it into a shorter bond period?
Bond counsel works with us on that, and we have seen 20-year lives out of our turf field, especially with the new maintenance program we have with them, and we're actually expecting to get even longer lives out of them moving forwards with this new program we're using.
Attorney Staffstrom, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, just in terms of why the 20-year bond?
Yeah, I think I would just suggest that what we were told is exactly what you just heard. The lifespan could be 15 to 20 years, and therefore it's a 20-year bond. We don't want to issue bonds for something that's going to be longer than the life of the project. If the board was more comfortable that you wanted to go with a more conservative lifespan, the 15 years, we could amend this to be a 15-year bond. I think the recommendation from the finance office was 20-year bond.
I think that's what is on the waterfall, is the 20-year bond.
Yeah, exactly.
Any questions, Ms. Kupchak?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Angela. So when we were starting this whole field, the artificial turf field proposals back when I was in office, we were supposed to be partnering with and I can't remember the acronym, Fairfield, whatever, Fairfield Athletic.
Foundation.
Yep.
And we had numerous meetings with them. I believe you were there, Anthony, talking about a partnership because we we're spending an extraordinary amount of money all across the board, especially in light of the, 74 million we just passed. Are they ponying up anything toward this?
Not at this point. We're always continuing negotiations and talking with them. One of the proposals they came before us with was a pay-to-play use of the fields if they were able to contribute. That's why we didn't really move forwards with that. It's not a model that the town has used in the past, so we weren't really comfortable moving forwards with that at that time.
Well, that's not what we were talking about in all those meetings that we had. It was that we would, I forget the number, we needed $8 or $9 million for the turf, and that they were gonna, fundraise and assist, and we put up the first 4 million, and they were gonna come up with some money, and, to hear that, they were pretty, passionate about it, and, were giving a lot of guarantees to all of us at the time that they were going to be able to bring some money to the table because, we're spending, listen, I'm all for the turf field. I think we need it and we need to have parity between the schools. But when people come and say, please give us these things, and we're spending so much money on all these other educational facilities, there's got to be a little give here. I don't think we should be going to a pay to play. I think that people can fundraise and bring some money to the table. I'm a little disappointed to hear that there's nothing, like nothing.
So, Ms. Kupchak, I met with them over about a year ago.
Yeah.
With the two athletic directors, and they did have some ideas and thoughts. Have not heard back after that, any subsequent meetings. But at the time, it seemed as if they wanted more say in the use of the field, if they contributed a good portion of the funding that we had a problem with.
Right.
It's obviously Fairfield Ward Athletics would take precedent over any other outside groups. And then, given our reservation system, any outside groups that want to use the field can go through that. And we do have a fee schedule, as you're aware of. So I think that might be the cleanest way for folks to contribute is when available, rent the field. And it happens now on a limited basis because we only have one at Ward and one at Ludlow that we are able to do under our purview. But having a second one at Ward will allow us to have more flexibility with them.
No, I hear you, Mike, and I'm not saying that it's the school's, fault. I think that, promises were made and a lot of meetings happened, and people said if the town gives 4 million, we will be able to come up with money to turf another field. And so I understand this isn't a fully used field by these outside athletic groups, but it's just a little, I just wanted to bring it to the attention of everybody because there was a tremendous amount of meetings and a lot of discussion and promises. So I just wanted to bring it up.
No, I appreciate that. And I've had some other folks approach us in helping, in offering to help build a field for us. But with that comes strings. And I think
Right.
it's a really slippery slope when we enter into those agreements.
Thank you.
Sure. And I just want to reiterate what Mr. Papageorge shared. This group has not reached out to me in my current role, but I did meet with them probably at the same time you did, Ms. Kupchak, when you were first Selectwoman. As Board of Ed Chair, they presented a business plan to the board. As Mr. Papageorge shared, part of their financial plan was every child in Fairfield Public Schools contributing to the cost of the field. And we just felt that was, in essence, pay to play, which our board at the time did not support, and past boards also did not want to use that model for the school district. We offered to help them with other funding mechanisms if they wanted to fundraise, but the project pretty much, the conversations ended at that point. But always welcome to continue them if they want to come back. But for now, very much concerned about parity between our two high schools. When I was on the Board of Education and met with the athletic directors, it was always if you could ask for one thing, your wish list, and Fairfield Ward always asked for, the turf field. The Board of Ed had this as a request last year for a lower price point. I appreciate the time that was taken to do more research and get a better idea of the liability we might face or the uncertainty with the soil, that you've gone that extra mile. And I feel comfortable supporting this today. Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, any public comment on this? Seeing none, back to the board for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Thank you. All right, we're up. To hear, consider, and adopt a bond resolution entitled "A Resolution Appropriating $913,440 for the cost of parking lot paving projects at Roger Ludlow Middle School and Fairfield Ludlow High School, and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation." Motion?
So moved.
Ms. Follier. Second? Subject?
Good afternoon again. So what you have before you is the RLMS front parking lot is in disrepair, in need of replacement and repair. The parking lot was installed in 2003 when the building was open. We've gotten more than the 20-year life expectancy out of this parking lot. And at this point, we are looking to regrade it, resurface it, and repave it so that included in this project would be some newer styles of water management as well. If you're familiar with the parking lot, the top left corner of that parking lot is where snow is all moved to. Because of the grade of that parking lot, as the snow melts, it runs across the parking lot and refreezes, so we end up with some slippery conditions in that parking lot that we're continuously salting and treating. This project not only includes the resurfacing, but also includes a water management underground, so that gives that water a place to go and store rather than run across the parking lot during freeze and refreeze periods. Again, you have your 14 points in front of you. And then one other thing just to capture is that I know when it comes to bonding with streets, there's always a hesitant because you don't get a life expectancy of 20 plus years out of streets. Parking lots get a lot less use than a heavy traffic street, so we do anticipate a 20 plus year life expectancy on this project.
Any questions on this project?
Yes, so Angela's 500 is for the middle school and 400 is for the high school.
91340 is for the high school. I'm sorry, that's the total. Yes, you are correct. I have the wrong number on my sheet. But yes, that is correct. So it makes the total for both 913,440. And you'll hear me say the same thing about the high school. It's the same front parking lot, same water conditions. And when doing research on that particular parking lot, we couldn't actually find the last time it was regraded or paved. So we are expecting it to be at least 20 plus years. And again, we will also incorporate water management into that program as well. And also a electric electric scooter and bike parking area. So it keeps the vehicles safe and away from the building at a safe distance as well. So that's all incorporated into this pricing for this project as well.
Has this gone out to bid? Do we know who's doing it?
We anticipate using the state contract for roads and parking lots. So it would be one of the vendors off of the state bid list.
Any questions?
And do you anticipate this happening during the summertime?
Yes, we anticipate doing this as soon as school is out for this year.
What about any concerns about the lights in the parking lots?
The lights are in good shape, but we will address any concerns with that. At the Ludlow High School campus, there's old boxes in the ground from the old lights before they were replaced. So part of this would be to remove those and give us a solid surface underneath, as opposed to the plastic or metal covers that are sitting in the middle of all over the parking lot now. so it would make it a more secure parking lot.
Any other questions from the board? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, back to the board for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. 3-0. Okay. Still with the public schools. To hear, consider, and adopt a bond resolution entitled, "A Resolution Appropriating $1,451,093 for costs associated with the Fairfield Woods Middle School bathroom renovations project and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation." Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Follier, second. Ms. Kupchak?
Second.
So this project incorporates the bathrooms at Fairfield Woods Middle School, some of which have been operating since 1954 without any facelifts or changes. A lot of pink tiles and yellows in there. This is a project very similar to the Ludlow High School bathroom project we just completed. Not only is it a facelift to the building, to the bathrooms, and it brings the fixtures into a district standard, but it also takes a deeper look into the old infrastructure for water and drainage systems. We currently have bathrooms in that building where, for instance, if there's 4 toilets in there, we reduce down to the use of 2 because of drainage concerns with overflow. So this does take a deeper dive into infrastructure as well as just a facelift to the bathrooms. That being said, we also have some concerns with drainage from art rooms and other rooms in there because they tie into the septic system or sewer system. So this would do a full dive into internal and external components of the bathroom. Again, you have your 14 points in front of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
A little off topic, but my son's actually a new high school teacher, and he said that he had a student recently who went to the bathroom and came back apparently high, and he said that like within seconds central office knew because they have sensors in the bathroom that can sense like smokeless cigarettes and all of that. Is that anything that you look at putting into the bathrooms? Have you looked at any type of sensors for middle school, high school students?
Don't talk about safety and security in an open session.
There you go,
but-
thank you. Appreciate that.
Ms. Kupchak?
Thank you. Mike, did the Board of Ed reshuffle their capital project list after the 74 million for Dwight?
There's been some movement on projects and the years that we would be asking for funding. This was a project that was moved up just because we've been having more and more issues in the building. As Angela's just mentioned, we're constantly having to shut down bathrooms in their entirety or portions of the bathroom, constantly getting plumbers out there, so this was moved up in our waterfall.
Okay, because I'm getting a little sticker shock over here. The last few meetings, I mean, I have to be perfectly honest, and I'm just speaking like a normal taxpayer in this town who's like looking at like 74 million, and now we're doing another. I mean, what are we doing today? It's almost $5 million. This stuff adds up, and it's just like, what is being moved out? I talked about this a lot when I was in office that, there has to be a give and take. And, 74 million to me should just like, blow everything out of the water. And I'm not saying that the bathrooms don't need to be done and the turf fields don't need to be done. A lot of things need to be done, but I mean, something's got to give at some point. What are we moving back?
So just on our capital waterfall, Ward's bathrooms were actually scheduled to be done prior to the Woods bathrooms. They were supposed to take place directly after the Ludlow High School bathrooms, but because of the difference in price tag, we felt both are in need of repair, but the Ward one had a lower price tag, Woods one had a lower price tag, so we felt that bringing this one back and pushing the Ward one out to the Woods original spot would help with the offset of some of the costs. Obviously, not a large offset, but again, we've been moving around projects on the capital waterfall to see where we can make things fit a little easier based on costs of projects. We've also worked very closely with the town's finance department. I don't want to speak for them. I don't know if anyone's here, but I do know that with these projects was included into their capital plan and it
Yes, I
kept
mean-
them within their cap that they were looking to keep within.
The capital planning group looked at the school projects and the town projects together. We looked at the town holistically, looked at the timing of when we thought the cash flow would flow for these projects as well as just need. Do not disagree that there are a lot of school projects that are before us over the last few weeks. The security vestibules, I think, got moved up out of need. I think this project, having lived through putting off the bathrooms at Fairfield Ludlow High School for a number of years, I will share that we had some not so pretty issues with toilet bowls overflowing and going into floors, and it really got to be a health issue. So I would not, it's quite tempting to push some of these stuff out. I think that we're gonna end up regretting it in the long run just for maintenance and exposing our buildings to bigger problems if these bathroom systems do not function properly.
What was the cushion after the capital planning? I can't remember. What were we, where did we land
We
on?
were just under 9%.
Just under 9?
And 10% is the cap that we usually plan for, is 8 point. I don't have it, I didn't bring the.
Was there, did we put, I know I watched most of the meeting, but I'm trying to think, did we put money into contingency in case we have an emergency? Because we're really up against the line on spending and bonding. Our credit cards, pretty tight.
We didn't, well, the projects will have contingency in them, and as I said, we were under 9, so we've got that extra cushion between the 9 to 10 before we get to our cap. And if an emergency situation comes our way, then we'll just have to revisit where we are with these projects and what moves forward and maybe what can be placed on hold. But I don't want to get too far into capital planning, in part because I know that people have schedules to keep and want to keep us focused on our agenda. We've got a full agenda today, but happy to, answer more questions just in terms of our capital planning philosophy for future projects.
I just want to say for the record that I think we really need to maybe have a meeting where we have a bit of a discussion about, all of these things coming down and where are we going to prioritize? Because it seems like, things are being moved around and it doesn't seem like a whole lot of things are being moved back. And everything is important, and I understand that, but there's got to be some, there's got to be some fiscal responsibility, and especially what's going on with the economy right now. I think we need to be very careful.
Well, we're going to keep a close eye on that, and our capital planning workshop that we had last month that had members of all boards present. I think that was that meeting, that we looked at the town and the needs of the school district, our DPW, our Parks and Rec, our police and fire, and had the discussion and prioritized what the town's needs were, and also making sure that we were being fiscally responsible and not bumping right up against that 10% bonding cap. That was our policy. Always happy to revisit this, especially given what's going on at the federal level right now. I hear you, and if we want to have the Capital Group come and give us an update, we definitely can do that. But as I said, we did as a town, all boards participate in that type of planning exercise just last month, gave everybody a chance to weigh in. If anything needed to be moved, there was an opportunity for feedback at that meeting. Any more questions about the bathrooms?
I have a question.
We don't take back and forth with the public, I'm sorry, sir, but you can get public comment. Any more questions for the board on this? Any public comment on this issue? If you do, just ask you to go to the podium and give your name and address for the record.
Never mind, this one.
All right, I'm sorry.
Somebody we could speak.
Well, you can give public comment. You can come to the podium and we need it for the record.
Bill Sargent, I just wanted to know if you got bids for these bathroom remodels. I mean, did you take, did you get several bids?
As I said, we don't usually do back and forth, but just for the public's knowledge, typically, Mr. Papageorge, if you want to talk about how this was priced, but typically funding is guaranteed first, and then we will go out to bid. In some instances, if the project, there's a state bid list that we know we can use a state bid list, but we definitely look for competitive pricing. But Mr. Papageorge, for this particular project, if there's anything you want to add.
But if you haven't got bids, how did you come up with that figure?
So we work through getting figures on previous projects that we've done similar to this. We work with architects and engineers who do similar work all over the state of Connecticut to get pricing, to work through pricing. Then we come to the boards, we secure the pricing for the project, and then we will go out to public bid for an architect engineer to design them. And then we go out for the work to be done also. So it's a multiple bid process.
It's a lot of red tape. So you're saying
I'm gonna-
you may get higher bids or you may get lower bids.
We're very comfortable with our pricing on this project based on our experience with other projects.
Thank you.
You did your name for the record. Thank you, sir. Any other public comment on? Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Can you ask the gentleman to provide his name and address for the record?
Bill Surgeon,
And your address, sir?
620 South Pine Creek Road.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, back to the board for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on to number 6. We have Adam Tulin here and Buildings Manager James Ryan. This is for the Purchasing Authority. To hear, consider, and act on authorizing the Purchasing Authority to enter into a master agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Air Temp Mechanical Services, Inc. of Berlin, Connecticut, to provide labor, materials, equipment, and else necessary for the Building Management System, BMS, and HVAC controls upgrade at the Fairfield Police Department as detailed in the Town of Fairfield bid 2026-11 and the Air Temp Mechanical Services submission dated October 8th, 2025, for a total lump sum in the amount not to exceed $170,000 with additional authority to enter into necessary change orders in an amount not to exceed the approved funding for this project. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, Ms. Kupchak. Mr. Ryan.
How are you?
Hello.
Adam usually starts us off. Adam?
Yes, hi, Adam Tulin, Director of Purchasing. So we put out this bid recently. We received 5 responses. My staff, along with Mr. Ryan, performed a thorough scope review with the apparent low bidder, Air Temp, and they feel comfortable proceeding with award. I'm not sure, did the bid results end up getting included as backup material or not? Okay, so we did receive 5 bids. There were 2 that were fairly close to each other, Air Temp at 170, and then Environmental Systems at 243. The other 3 were a bit higher, so that was one of the main focuses of the scope review with Air Temp, and when that happens, we want to really make sure that the low bidder understood the scope, that they didn't miss anything, but really they felt very confident with their price. They felt there were a number of services they provide in-house that maybe the competitors are not able to provide in-house, so that should account for some of the price difference. We also included the recent, there's a company you all recently approved a contract for that will basically inherit this system to maintain. They were included to provide some guidance to us during the process, and they felt comfortable with the submission as well. So we're here to ask for your approval of the contract.
Yeah, I mean, I can elaborate a little more. This is basically the HVAC controls for the police department. We in the past few years have installed new air conditioning, air handlers, condenser units, an absorber, a bunch of other high-efficiency things to make the building more efficient. This is the next step. It's going to help with scheduling and night setback and to save a little more energy. And it touches basically the air conditioning, the heating plant, sewer pumps, VAV boxes, air handlers, hot water, baseboard, radiant zones, cabinet heaters, pretty much everywhere around the building with controls to make it just a little more tighter efficiently.
Any questions? Any members of the public have comment on this item? Seeing none, back to the board for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Mr. Ryan.
All right, thank you.
We are still on number 7, Purchasing Authority. We have Mr. Tulin and Town Clerk Betsy Brown. To hear, consider, and act on authorizing the Purchasing Authority to enter into a commercial equipment lease agreement between the Town of Fairfield and CCP Solutions LLC of Farmingdale, New York, to provide Sarah printer, sorry if I butchered that, with pay station and necessary software. I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Sawyer, second. Mr. Tulin?
Yes, thank you. And I'm not sure if Betsy's there, but I don't know if it'll be necessary. This is a relatively small dollar printer lease. It's for a machine that they have in the town clerk's office that is only utilized by people from the outside coming in to, say, print land records, do title searches, things like that. And they pay I believe it's $1 a page. It's just a fixed fee that the town clerk's office has. This lease, this printer, it's sort of boring. It doesn't offer any new service. It doesn't get rid of any service. It's just there was a necessary technology upgrade that was required to keep the current systems running. You'll see the lease is, I believe it's for $292 a month. I talked to Betsy, and she actually estimates on average she brings in about $300 a month from the machine. So, it's effectively a net zero, but just because it's a new lease, we wanted to bring it before you to get approval.
Thank you. Any questions on this? Ms. Kupchak, any questions on the lease?
No.
Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, back to the board for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. All right, we're still with the Purchasing Authority. To hear, consider, and act on authorizing the Purchasing Authority to enter into an installment payment agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Cisco Systems Capital Corporation of Wayne, Pennsylvania, to provide the necessary licensing and software for the landline phone system for the Town of Fairfield and Fairfield Public Schools. The purchase is per the terms of state contract number 18 PSX 0202.
So moved.
Second.
Great.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. So Mr. Kelly can definitely explain the ins and outs of this a lot better than me, but just from a purchasing perspective, it's sort of a two-parter, the way my brain operates with this. I mentioned the purchases per the terms of state contract 18 PSX 0202. That is the mechanism by which we can proceed with this order. What I have before you today is the actual lease that is required for the licenses. Sorry, a little bit of a distraction. Maybe take it away, Dave.
Help her. Yeah, why don't I take it from here? Basically, this is as sexy as telephone system maintenance for the town and school telephones, the desktop phones, the conference phones, things like that. Telephones these days are basically computers. There's no longer an old-fashioned telephone, and with computers comes software licensing. So this is basically a 5-year enterprise agreement with the vendor, with the manufacturer, that is being sold to us on a 0% lease. So instead of paying it as a lump sum, it's divided up over 5 even payments, which we share with the Board of Ed.
Any questions on this item?
No.
Any public comment? Seeing none, back to the board for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Purchasing authority to hear and act on authorizing the purchasing authority to enter into an agreement between the town of Fairfield and CARP Strategies LLC of New York, New York, to provide consulting services and else necessary for the Fairfield Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan per Town of Fairfield RFP 2025-40, and as detailed in the CARP proposal dated February 6, 2025. The initial contract value is not to exceed the SS4A grant funding approved for this project.
So moved.
Ms. Follier, second.
Yes, so I'll just mention, again, this is Adam Toolin, Purchasing Director. We issued RFP 2025-40 earlier this year. We put together a pretty comprehensive RFP review panel, including members from a number of different departments. We received 2 responses. We brought both of them in for interviews. The committee felt that CARP Strategies had the best overall approach that was most in line with our plans, so we proceeded with an award recommendation at that time. The reason for the delay, if you notice, the proposal dates back to February. Maybe Mr. Hurley can speak more to this, but there were some delays while we were waiting for this particular federal grant to come through. You guys approved that maybe a month or so ago, the acceptance of those funds. So now we're ready to proceed with the actual contract award with the awarded vendor.
I'll just continue, like Adam said, a month ago, we were here saying, just to give you a heads up, we'll be back about a month from now with the contract with the consultant called CARP. Just a quick recap, they were selected based on their experience. They've done the Stanford Vision Zero. They've done the Safe Streets for All program in New Haven. They've done work for CROG in terms of quick build and demonstration projects. They've worked in Middletown, Connecticut for some safety measures. What they'll be doing is an ultimate safety action plan, which would set priorities for all modes of transportation, vehicle, pedestrians, bicycles, and transit. You'd have Vision Zero components. It's a town-wide area analysis, safety analysis. There'll be data collection. There'll be stakeholder and public meetings. There'll be GIS mapping. They will recommend some quick build or potential projects. There'll be a traffic management plan. And obviously, putting all this together, we hope that there'll be future grant possibilities to carry out these recommendations. The report itself will provide valuable information for the police, TPZ, DPW, engineering, fire, and probably even the Board of Ed. So, and most important is that the contract amount is within the grant allowance. So, I'm here to answer any other questions.
Any questions on this?
I have 2.
Yes?
First, maybe it could be for Bill or Adam, but was there any Connecticut companies that do the same thing as this company?
Yes, there was. There was FHI who had done the peanut roundabout study, and it was very close. It was not a totally unanimous decision, but overwhelmingly, as I said before, the committee, and Adam mentioned it too, this committee had selected this company. They had more fresh ideas. They seemed to be very enthusiastic. They did a very impressive presentation, and there's a couple of well-known members of their I guess, firm, so to speak. And so that's why they were selected. The other companies definitely qualified as well, but the committee went with this one on a matrix or a point system. And these were the ones that were selected, CARP.
Just for layman's terms, Bill, what does the town get for this? Like, what are we gonna get? Like,
Well,
give
yeah,
a couple examples of data that we're gonna get that we don't already sort of have.
Well, the key thing is they're going to set priorities throughout the town. They'll analyze segments of roadways, and they'll analyze, for the most part, most streets. I mean, they may not do the dead ends, but most streets in town. We hope to collect vehicle volumes, speeds. They'll have, as I said, they'll set the priorities so that it's not just arbitrarily, or whoever screams the loudest. They'll actually have independent report analysis that they'll make recommendations on. And then even from there, those recommendations, not only just the priorities, but they'll actually say, maybe you should do a bulb out here, or maybe they look at horizontal or vertical speed reduction measures, pedestrian safety improvements. They'll look at what we have done in the past, and they'll make recommendations of what we could possibly do in the future. They're experienced, as I said, with the Stamford Vision Zero. Obviously, our new director of Public Works comes from Stamford. And by the way, this decision was made before he joined the town, so we had no idea on that. And then with the city of New Haven and Middletown and even the CROG. So we're going to get what they call a safety action plan. That's what the whole report is. Actually, I could even break it up here. It will involve kickoff meetings, as we mentioned before, research and data collection, safety analysis, big on the stakeholder engagement. Don't quote me on it, but I think we have between like 8 and 12. I think we're aiming for like even having 1 or 2 each, like RTM district, be able to meet with the consultants and air their concerns, complaints, whatever it may be. Then there'll be a traffic management plan and the development of the safety action plan, which would be a report and specify recommendations. There'll be analysis of the crash data as well.
So pretty much every street beside dead ends.
That's what I believe that's what they're proposing to do. Obviously, some of the streets will have more emphasis than others, but yeah, that's what we're hoping to get from this. And as I said, they had done New Haven's Safe Streets for All, so they have experience in Connecticut doing a very similar program. And as I said, the other municipalities, they come well recommended. So.
And how long do you think it'll take?
They have 1 year to complete the report, per the grant and per their schedule.
Can you remind everyone, for the public, how much the grant was?
The grant is $350,000. There is a town share of $87,500, but that can include in-kind services. So once the agreement, which has been signed, it's now just the agreement between the consultant. We can now start. Matter of fact, even this meeting, I can claim, a half hour or whatever it is, and get that and get that as part of a reimbursement on the town share. And so starting now, anything that we work on, we have to keep a record, much like you would be familiar with FEMA and all the other ones where we have to keep track of all our time and to get reimbursed. And this is a reimbursement program, so they do make us fill out a lot of paperwork, but we get, as I said, $350,000. We plan on taking that money out of the Complete Streets account. But as I said, it's reimbursed, so every month we'll submit, every month or quarter, I got to double check the grant conditions. But whenever we submit, we get a reimbursement usually between 2 and 4 weeks after, so there should be no cash flow problems.
I just want to say for the record, I don't know, $350,000 doesn't seem like an awful lot of money to analyze every single street in the town. And also pay Bill for all the hours he works dealing with the street issues.
Well, that would go up, as I said, that's the 87,000. So the total project is 437, if that makes a difference. And it would not, and we could even possibly claim some task force time. If the PD gets involved, First Selectman's office gets involved, we can also, claim them to get the reimbursement. Obviously, we'll go for the maximum reimbursement that's allowed.
What did the consultant give, though, as a price for their work?
For their work, they have it at 350,000, and I think the way we worded it, we would allow like a $25,000 contingency. So 350 is what actually both consultants came up with.
Doesn't seem like they're going to have a lot left over for time that you and Mega and anyone else puts in.
Well, again, we'll just play that by ear. We, as I said, there is a town share, but we can claim that, so at least it's no cost to the town outside, out of pocket. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks.
Does the study look at the future at all? Like, does it look at any of the projects that are in the plan? So for instance, any of the housing projects, safety areas around them? Is this going to be, are they going to have access to that and be looking at that?
We would have to provide, obviously, they wouldn't know that, so we would have to provide them if it was something significant,
Are we planning on doing that?
Well,
Have so
when we
much
have
in the-
when we have our kickoff meeting, and again, these discussions, I'm sure that the public, if nothing else, when they have the public meetings, will bring up, oh, there's going to be, and again, although it may affect a lot of people, 50-unit, isn't going to really affect traffic town-wide, but it would their street, you know what I mean? And so that's something that we can have them look at, certainly. But they have, as I said, they have done these in the past. They'll make recommendations to us on what they think they should do, and then we go back and forth with them. And if there's a particular area that we think is being neglected, we could have them concentrate more on that area.
Great. Christine, I don't know if
The public,
Brown has an answer, or I have another comment before.
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't know if she had an answer to that. I'm excited about this project. I think we really need it. It's being an RTM representative in District 4. I know that in the past, I know that, a lot of it is like where you get the most noise, and there's a lot of places that don't get a lot of noise but have a lot of concerns. So I think this will give us the data that we need to address them in a good priority order. So I appreciate that.
We have Chief of Staff Christine Brown here, who's also been working closely with this, and give her the opportunity to just
Thank
add
you,
any.
Christine Brown, Chief of Staff. I've been working very closely on the Complete Streets project since its inception, and I just wanted to give a little context on this grant and this program. Safe Streets for All is a federal program that will allow municipalities to take advantage of potentially millions of dollars, federal grant dollars. It's 3 phases. There's a planning grants, demonstration grants, and implementation grants. This is the first phase, the planning grant. Once we do this, we can become eligible to apply for, in fact, we've already applied for a demonstration grant so that we can do demonstration temporary projects to prove the validity of the items in the study that the consultant turns up. Following on to that, we can apply for implementation money to actually build out these projects. So Bridgeport, as an example, recently won an SS4A implementation grant of, I think it was $2.4 million. We don't have money in our budget for a lot of these projects. We rely on these kind of grants. So this is a really necessary component to freeing up that money down the road. So I just wanted to kind of put it in perspective as to why this is so key. And we don't have staff to do this project either. So hiring a consultant who is going to do lots of public engagement, get lots of feedback from the public, and ultimately produce a townwide plan is something that we have been eager to see for since we've submitted this proposal. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, any public comment on this issue? Seeing none, back to the board for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0.
All right, thank you.
Go for the presentation.
Sure.
All right, we are moving on. Chief of Police, to hear, consider, and act on approving a DUI enforcement grant in the amount of $54,720 from the Department of Transportation's Highway Safety Office to support the Fairfield Police Department's DUI enforcement activities to enhance roadway safety and support the town's Vision Zero initiatives, and further authorizing the Fairfield Police Department to accept, appropriate, and expend said grant to execute any and all documents required to effectuate said grant. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Follier, seconded by Ms. Kupchak.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hector Azari, Captain, Fairfield Police Department. We request your approval to formally accept the fiscal year 2026 DUI enforcement grant from the Connecticut DOT Highway Safety Office in the amount of $54,720. The grant period runs from October 9th, 2025 to September 12th, 2026, which is designed to enhance roadway safety, reduce alcohol-related crashes and fatalities, and advance Fairfield's Vision Zero initiatives. This grant provides targeted funding for overtime enforcement, equipment, and administrative costs associated with DUI patrols conducted during high-risk periods. Also includes strong public education component, emphasizing the awareness and dangers of impaired driving, promoted responsible choices through social media outreach and community engagement. We respectfully request the board's approval to accept this grant funding for the designated period.
Any questions on this item? Any public comment on this item? Back to the board for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, moving on to number 10. To hear, consider, and act on approving a grant in the amount of $9,933.98 from the Department of Transportation's Highway Safety Office for the Fairfield Police Department's Click It or Ticket Targeted Traffic Enforcement Initiative for seatbelt enforcement, and further authorizing the Fairfield Police Department to accept, appropriate, and expend said grant and to execute any and all documents required to effectuate said grant. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Ms. Kupchak.
Good afternoon again. Okay, we're here to request your approval to formally accept a Click It or Ticket grant award totaling $10,000 to be utilized over 2 enforcement waves, December 1st through December 5th of 2025, and May 11th through May 31st, 2026. My birthday. This initiative is a focused traffic safety operation designed to increase seatbelt compliance, reduce motor vehicle crashes and injuries, and enhance overall community safety through a combination of high visibility enforcement and public education. The operation will be conducted in partnership with state and local law enforcement agencies and will target high risk or high crash corridors and school zones, areas where data has shown lower seatbelt usage and higher incident rates. Our strategy will include roving patrols, fixed checkpoints, guided by real-time crash and violation data to ensure that our efforts are both effective and efficient. In addition to the enforcement, the grant supports public outreach and education with coordinated messaging before and during each enforcement wave. To give you a sense of the impact, during the last Click It or Ticket operation, we conducted over 1,437 traffic stops, issued 398 citations, and identified 279 seatbelt violations. Most importantly, we saw a 12% reduction in motor vehicle crashes compared to the same period in the previous year. And the seatbelt compliance increased from 92% to 95%. The results represent not only safer roads, but also stronger partnerships between our police department, the community, and the state. The initiative contributes directly to our Vision Zero goals, reducing serious injuries and fatalities on Fairfield roadways through proactive, data-driven strategies. We respectfully request approval to receive the awarded funds for fiscal year 2026.
Any questions? Before we go to the public, I want to just thank you both for your work on this and for all that you do to find these grant opportunities for us to keep our community safe on the roads. Any public comment on this issue? I just ask you to please come to the podium and just give your name and address.
Hi, my name is Xing He. Street is 1070 High Street. I have a comment and also a question. This is a good grant and to make our streets safer. And the question is, how do you inform the public? You have 2 periods of enforcement. One is December, one is May next year.
Sure. Well, we utilize a variety of social media platforms to do so, and through the media as well. We've gone as far as had News 12 come in and conduct interviews of our officers to put that media out to the public as well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that because we need the public awareness in addition to the enforcement. That we need both.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our police department has an amazing social media account also, so if you aren't following them, I encourage you to. And we will also use town communications to share all the work that they're doing. Any other public comment on this? Just ask you to come to the podium, just on this agenda item, and give your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is James Leask. I live on 1004 High Street in Fairfield, Connecticut. Sorry, I'm not wearing a shirt and a tie, but I had to run from work to get to this meeting today. There were a couple of, first of all, I'd like to thank you for everything that you do in our town. I just want to mention something that I did read about and I did see on a social media site that you're going to be putting in automated ticketing sites in the school zones. Is that correct? Okay. I believe you picked 6 sites. Now we have Holland Hill School. 1004, I'm like 3 blocks away from that, down towards the intersection. And first of all, I'd like to thank traffic for enforcing ticketing on our street in the mornings. It has slowed down the speeding during the day, but we still are having a problem at night in the evenings. When people hit that stop sign at Judge Street and then they come up High Street, I mean, these people are driving like 80, 90 miles an hour and they have no care for anybody who lives in the neighborhood. And as you know, it is a quiet neighborhood and there are a lot of kids riding bikes, and that type of thing. So I just wanted to mention that. So I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other public comment on this agenda item, the grant?
We are hiring too, by the way. Fairfield Police is currently recruiting.
Nice plug. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Got you out by 5. All right. Number 12, Community and Economic Development Director. To hear, consider, and act on a request from the Fairfield Affordable Housing Committee pursuant, did I skip
I
something?
think you're on the wrong agenda,
Oh, my
actually.
goodness.
The updated agenda, I thought you were off on the numbers, because we have the NIP.
Oh, I got it. All right, sorry, thank you for looking out for me. Got updated, all right. Thank you. Selectman Spallier. Number 12.
I told her she couldn't do that.
Capital Projects and Operations Manager, whereas the town of Fairfield Town has been awarded a grant in the total amount of $122,250 grant funds by the state of Connecticut as part of the Department of Energy, and whereas the grant is for the construction of a canopy over the recycling trailer at the transfer station located at 898 Richard White Way. Now therefore be it resolved that the first selectman be and hereby is authorized to accept, appropriate, and expend said grant and execute any and all required documents to effectuate said grant. And whereas the project requires additional funds from the town in the amount of $23,175 to fabricate and install a recycling canopy at the Fairfield Transfer Station, detailed in Town of Fairfield RFP number 2025-51R for a lump sum amount not to exceed $145,425. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ballers, seconded by Ms. Kupchak. Mr. Deering.
Troy Deering, Capital Projects Project Manager. I'm coming back to the board for this project again. We were here in June to get the contract approval for the full amount of 145,425 under the assumption that the grant had a cap, and the DPW department, which I'm representing, was going to decide on which account at the time they wanted to back up it. Everything was approved at the time. In the interim, we decided that it would be the best to use the NIP money. I'm not sure if everyone knows what the NIP money is, but it's a tax that's applied to actual NIPs of alcohol that are sold at liquor stores, and each town that sells those gets that small tax back, and it adds up to quite a bit per year. So each department for the town gets a pool of that money that's approved by the other boards, and this is a great chance to help supplement an energy grant that we got, and also use the NIP money to help in an efficient manner. So we just look for your approval there to spend the extra $23,175 of the NIP money to help support the U.S. Department Energy Grant for the canopy.
Thank you. Any questions?
You look new to me. Could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Troy Deering, Capital Projects. I've been here since January 1st, pretty much. So I've only been on one or two meetings before.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any public comment on this? Seeing none, back to the board for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
And motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Deering. All right, moving on to 13. Community and Economic Development Director to hear, consider, and act on a request from the Fairfield Affordable Housing Committee pursuant to Chapter 7 of the Town Code to approve the expenditure of $570,000 from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to the Fairfield Housing Corporation in connection with its development of a 40-unit assisted housing development at 980 High Street. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Follier, can I have a second? Lester?
Sorry, second.
That's okay. Second. Ms. Barnhart.
Good afternoon. Mark Barnhart, Community Economic Development Director. I'm here on this item on behalf of the Affordable Housing Committee. Presumably all these people are here as well for this item. I'm joined by Herb Limecooler, who is the chair of the Affordable Housing Committee. Just by way of background, I think this board is aware the town established by ordinance in 2018 an Affordable Housing Trust Fund. That fund can be used for a variety of activities and costs in support of the preservation and development of affordable housing in town. The fund derives its revenues primarily from an inclusionary zoning fee that was passed by the Town Planning and Zoning Commission. That's assessed on new construction and building addition projects that do not otherwise contribute to meet the town's affordable housing needs. Any disbursements from the fund does require the approval of both the Affordable Housing Committee as well as this body. As you know, the town has allocated monies from this fund in the past to support a number of projects, including most recently the acquisition of land to help further development of affordable home ownership units in partnership with Habitat for Humanity of coastal Fairfield County. As of the end of September, the fund had an uncommitted balance of $1.3 million, a little more than that. Recently, the Affordable Housing Committee received an application from the Fairfield Housing Corporation requesting an allocation of $570,000 from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in support of its plans to construct a 40-unit assisted housing development at 980 High Street. The committee considered this request at its meeting of October 8th. That meeting was attended by Ms. Martin, as well as other members of her development team who made a brief presentation and then responded to questions from the committee. After which the committee voted to recommend this request to this board for your consideration. Ms. Martin is here and can speak to the specifics of the project, but very briefly, the Housing Corporation purchased this property, which is about 2.5 acres, in December of 2018. The corporation then applied for and received Town Planning and Zoning Commission approval in February of 2020 to construct the 40-unit assisted housing development named the Judd Homestead at Russo Estates. and then subsequently applied for and ultimately did receive inland wetlands approval in October of 2024. The project consists of 5 buildings, each of which contain 8 rental units, with all first floor units being barrier-free and wheelchair accessible. All 40 apartments will be affordable with restrictive covenants in place to ensure that units remain affordable to households with incomes between 30% and 80% of the area median. The planned development does contain a mix of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units, with some units set aside as permanent supportive housing for adults with developmental disabilities. The original farmhouse will remain and be converted into offices and community space for the residents. Corporation has applied for and received earlier this year an allocation of low-income housing tax credits from the state. Those are federal dollars, federal commitments rather. There's additional funding to this project being provided by the State Department of Housing and other state agencies, but that still leaves a small gap that the Housing Corporation is seeking to fill through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in this $26 million development project. So as I mentioned, this did come before the committee. The committee did consider this, did vote to recommend it for this board to consider and approve. They were persuaded by several factors. I'll just mention them here before I turn things over to Carol if you have any questions with respect to the project itself. The project will result in an additional 40 units of much-needed affordable rental housing, much of it aimed at those most vulnerable within our community, including seniors, those with developmental disabilities, and families with very low incomes. The project is consistent with the town's adopted affordable housing plan, which recommends that the town support the efforts of the Housing Authority to create more affordable housing units in town with a goal to produce 50 new units over the course of the 5-year plan term. This obviously will go a long way to achieving that goal. The project will be affordable to persons and households with incomes between 30% and 80% of the median income, with restrictive covenants in place to ensure that all units remain affordable in perpetuity, with half of the units being wheelchair accessible and units being set aside to provide permanent supportive housing for adults with developmental disabilities. As constituted, the project would yield a total of 81 housing unit equivalency points towards our second moratorium, which represents a significant share. It's probably the largest amount of points for a single project, and obviously would go a great way to achieving our second moratorium before the first one expires in 2029. And the proposed allocation of $570,000 does represent a subsidy of about $14,250 per unit, which compares favorably to prior allocations from the trust fund. I mentioned Greenfield Street, the Habitat projects. The subsidy there was roughly $60,000 per unit. We produced 4 units on the property as a result of the town's use of Housing Trust Fund dollars. We also have projects on Quincy Street where the subsidy is a little bit more. They're not directly comparable, it just gives you a sense as to where we're coming from. So with that, I'll pause. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit from the Housing Corporation's perspective, and then I'll be happy to respond to questions.
Good evening, or good afternoon, late afternoon. Thanks for considering this item. Obviously, it's very important to my nonprofit, the Fairfield Housing Corp. I'm here tonight as authorized individual to speak on behalf of the corporation. And for those of you that also have seen me around town, I also wear another hat. I'm the executive director of the Fairfield Housing Authority. Been serving this community since 2012 in the capacity of executive director. I also am very proud to say I'm born and raised in Fairfield, Connecticut. Love this community, and I'm so glad to be back serving the community. So with that, I'm guessing you might have a few questions regarding some of the details of the project, but I do want to say that, the Affordable Housing Committee, has been a leader and really appreciate their support and continued support to get us to this point. So anyway.
Well, thank you.
So we'll take questions.
Yeah. Thank you both for being here. I know, and thank you for members of the public that are here in person. We received a lot of emails as well on this. I know that this project has been something, a long time. There's been many ups and downs with it. Understand that there's been changes in the project since its inception, addressing some of the community's concerns. And yeah, if anybody's there, there's more chairs here. But I will take it to the board for some questions. If you ladies have any, I want to give you the floor.
I do. I have a bunch. I have a couple for multiple you. Carol, can you tell us what the difference is between the Fairfield Housing Authority and the Fairfield Housing Corporation and how they interact with the town differently?
Sure.
Thank you.
So the Fairfield Housing Authority was actually created under state law, and it was happening about 1964. So full disclosure, I was 1 year old. I don't remember that. But under state law, municipalities, towns across the state can create a housing authority, and they typically do that because there's a shortage of decent, safe, sanitary, low and moderate income. The town had a huge vision, did that in 1964. When I got to the Fairfield Housing Authority, we operated 2 properties in a housing choice voucher program. One of the properties, was failing, both financially as well as the bricks and mortar. And the only way really that the Housing Authority could redevelop that property, known as Pine Tree, was to go after funding that a housing authority couldn't access. And so through the leadership of my board, they created the Fairfield Housing Corp. So Fairfield Housing Corp was actually the developer of Pine Tree. It is and has gotten its 501c3. I think that happened in 2013. We don't really do a lot of fundraising. Most charitable organizations do fundraising. The real purpose, obviously, for the Housing Authority to set this up was to effectuate redevelopment activities and creating more units on the properties that we controlled. So the Fairfield Housing Corp really proceeded through this project through the support of the directors of the board. The Fairfield Housing Authority really has nothing to do with this project other than it's the sole member of the organization. But all the resolutions that come go to the directors that sit on the board of the Fairfield Housing Corp. I hope that helps.
Thank you, that helps. And just to clarify, your corporation is a not-for-profit corporation, so you don't receive any profits or benefits from projects like this?
Right, so we are a nonprofit, so, the 501c is charitable. Provided we earn a profit or earn a fee for services, our mission is to roll it into the mission. So what happens is we take those funds, right, and we go and we reinvest in the community. In fact, 980 High Street is a good example of this, to your good question, Marcy, which is we took our developer fee that we earned developing Pine Tree, and we used that to purchase the property at 980 High Street, so.
And so you own the property at 980 High Street. The town of Fairfield does not own the property at 980.
Correct. Fairfield Housing Authority is not the owner. Fairfield Housing Corp has fee simple interest into the property. And if we're lucky enough to secure funds tonight, we will set up a ground lease. And the ground lease will provide leasehold interest to the partnership, which needs to be created to accept the tax credit equity.
Regarding the property, I know a lot of us are concerned about the wetlands, and I know there's been some changes since the project was initiated. Can you tell us what those changes are specifically in regards to the wetlands? So my understanding is that it's been through the process, and sometimes it's gone in favor of the residents or the town, and other times it's gone for the favor of you. And just can you tell me what how the plans changed to impact the wetlands?
Yeah, and I think that just to follow up on that, just for the public, being that the timeline on this project is relatively long, TPZ, as Mr. Barnhart shared, had approved it. The The project got caught up with inland wetlands. There was some appeals back and forth. It was adjudicated twice. In that time period, the project changed a little bit, just in terms of being responsive to the concerns of the community. So to piggyback on Selectman Spollier's question, just what has changed since the inception of this?
Sure. So first of all, obviously we made it through TP&Z. We had a favorable vote there. And so we went through inland wetlands, the first application, let's call it. And we obviously hired, our design team, civil engineers, soil scientist, landscape architect, et cetera. We ended up with a design. We put it forth into the inland wetlands, right? There was I would say a fair amount of opposition and some experts hired by the opposition to review our design. And basically they were the opinion of that it wasn't going to work as it was designed. And that happens pretty commonplace, honestly, in the world of land use. And so we were denied at that point, right? Because you had experts saying it wasn't going to work. You had experts that were saying it was going to work. And when I say going to work, obviously to meet the, the inland wetlands regulations, and also we had experts opining to the fact that it wouldn't have an adverse impact into the wetlands area on the southeast side of the property. So we ended up being denied. We went to Superior Court, which I have to tell you is the only appeal process that we have. I can tell you the Fairfield Housing Corp does not want to spend one day in court more than we need to. But there's no administrative review. The only thing, if you're denied in inland wetlands, it's just the way the process works. You have to go to try to appeal it through the court system. We did that. And the judge ruled in favor of the inland wetlands and said, look, they had every right to deny your application. However, in that decision was what the judge was saying that we needed to do, right? These are the things that we didn't do. And had we done that, right, we may have gotten a favorable vote. Reassembled the design team, took what the judge, put, in his order and said, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to make this better so that everyone can get behind the fact that a new design is going to work? And so one of the things that came up, and this is, having conversations, obviously, with the experts, in-house experts here at the town, because we have some really good folks in inland wetlands staff-wise, as well as our, favorite engineer, Bill. And, we got down and we said, okay, what can we do? What can we do? And so what came up was better testing of the soils. So the first time around, we went through and we did what was a very typical, where you drill wells and monitor, the water heights at certain areas of the season. And so what we did was a special test. Don't ask me, please, to tell you the name of it. All I know is I was pouring a lot of water into a very large pit. And there's an outfit that does this type of special testing, and we hired them. When we got the results of that testing, the modeling and assumptions that we were using were not as conservative as the test results that came out. So we had new data, which was actually really good news. So new data on the soils and their ability to drain. And so back went the design team now with the new data. And so we came in, our second application to inland wetlands with a new design. And, I can't tell you gallons per minute or anything like that, but basically, inland wetlands and how soils drain is, key to just good quality storm water management, right? So the design team got together, we came back with a design, we put it forth to the Inland Wetlands Commission. And, to the staff's credit and the Inland Wetlands Agency's credit, the folks there, they said, look, we're going to hire a consultant because this is really getting into, areas of expertise that, typically town staff or someone sitting on a board wouldn't have. So they ended up hiring an engineer. And my design team, my engineers, the town engineers, and the hired engineer for the inland wetlands all worked together, went back and forth through a collaborative process. And eventually we got to a place where the engineer that had requested several things of us And this is all on the record, so, I don't want to bore anyone with details, but there were things and points that he wanted us to do. We were able to accomplish all those things in the design, and then that engineer was the one that, delivered the opinion that, as well as our engineers, delivered the opinion that the new design would not have an adverse impact onto the wetlands. And so we thought, right, that we had gotten probably the best design, I guess, that good experts could come up with, and we were denied again. And so unfortunately, as I started with this conversation, there was no appeal process to go through other than to go back to court, which is where we went. And this time around, obviously, the court review, and that's all it is really, is an administrative review. There's no introduction of new information or anything like that. They're looking specifically at the complete record of the whole application from the moment that we submit all the way through to the decision. Judge ruled in our favor and in his order directed the Inland Wetlands Commission to approve the project. So I didn't mean to get too long-winded, but that's 7 years of information trying to compact in 10 minutes.
Well, I think that it's just important just to have an understanding of the process and the changes that were made since this project first started, that obviously we're concerned about the wetlands, concerned about conservation. The town doesn't like to needlessly, you don't like going to court, the town doesn't like going to court either. Cognizant of taxpayer money for this process, it does sound that it did yield new information and data that address some of the concerns of the Inland Wetlands Committee ultimately.
We have a better design the second time around. It was due to the good data that we, sought through the soils and the collaboration that happened, right, between multiple, civil engineers, which this is, the good work they do. It's no different than getting a second opinion when you're, having to go through a medical procedure that could be of serious nature. It's always good to get a second opinion. In this case, we had a full collaboration. So I do, as time-consuming and costly as it was, I actually feel 100% more confident that this design will work as it's intended.
I have a bunch more questions, but I'd rather give someone else a chance.
Mrs. Kupchak will give you a chance to ask some questions if you have any.
I actually don't have questions because I know about this. I'm very familiar with this. As Mark and Carol mentioned, this started back in 2018. I was then serving in the legislature, and I served on the Housing Committee my entire tenure in the legislature and was the ranking member. So I'm very familiar with how all this works. And I know that there's been, a tremendous amount. This issue started bubbling in 2018. And I went to a public meeting at Holland Hill School in 19 where there were a tremendous amount of people there asking questions of then the first selectman, Mike Tetro, and myself as the state representative who represented that area, and trying to explain to people about the 8-30G statute and how a lot of it was driving what was happening in our town. I think what's going on here, and we did receive a tremendous amount of emails, and a lot of people are, I think, thinking that this is a money coming out of taxpayer money, and I also think people may not understand completely that this is 100% affordable, that we're under a mandate. Listen, we're under a mandate by the state of Connecticut, and I think there's a lot of misdirected anger, and I get it. I'm angry. I fought for 10 years in Hartford to change the 8-30G law, 10 years, and was able to, for the first time in like 30 years, to get minor changes afforded to towns. And unfortunately, they were very minimal, and the majority made sure that they sunset it after 5 years. I mean, something as simple as counting a senior housing point as a full point And currently, and under the 8-30G statute, seniors only are counted as a half a point, which would make most people think like that's insane. But it's real and it's true. I've worked with Carol and I worked with Congressman Shea's office, helping people with housing for 7 years. We do have an affordable housing issue in the town. We do. We have seniors who are on lists for years and years and years and years. And my mother was on a list for senior housing, and I literally moved so I could put an in-law apartment so she could live in an affordable place. All that said, I think that there's a lot of questions about how this was not a transparent process, that there's questions that the Affordable Housing Commission actually voted for this, and maybe just had, an agreement or a soft agreement. And frankly, I think everyone in the room who's there and anyone who's online should be able to have the opportunity to share their opinions and their thoughts. But I personally think we should table the item. I think that the Affordable Housing Commission, who does do a lot of good work, should have a full meeting. This is not a new project. A lot of people are understanding it, but I don't think they maybe understand the logistics of what's happening right now. And I think it would be in the best interest of the town, of the community, and of the housing authority to hold a public meeting, the Affordable Housing Commission, to have this discussion with them, to let the public be aware of it so they could come and discuss it, and hear all the details. And I would encourage it to be taped on FairTV. I don't know if their meetings currently are. I just think that people need to understand this more closely than people who've been involved for a really long time. And I think it would be harmful to the community's trust in our town government if they don't have that opportunity, especially in light of the amount. And this wasn't just neighbors around High Street. These are people from all over the town. They're very whipped up, and I think that there's a lot of mistrust and concern, and I think the proper place for a full-throated discussion and open dialogue would be with the Affordable Housing Commission. That's what they do. And then come back and have a discussion, or have this come before the board then. Those are my 2 cents.
I just want to, for the record, just note that the Affordable Housing Committee did have a publicly noticed meeting where this was an item on the agenda to hear, consider, and act upon this request. It was noticed. We had a meeting. It's videotaped. People were able to see the video of the discussion, the presentation that was made by Ms. Martin and her team, discussion amongst the committee members. We had a quorum. The vote was 4 in favor, none opposed, and 2 abstentions with 1 person absent. So I do want to say, and prior to that, the committee has had regular updates on this project for a number of years, just to ascertain where things were. In December, we had a conversation that was attended by other members of the public that were talking about the application for low-income housing tax credits. And so I just want to note again for the record that the committee has had, I think they have been absolutely transparent. I think they have had meetings to discuss this. This was an item before coming to this body where it was noticed and it was made clear as to what the intent was. And I think there's a lot of folks here, obviously, that are here to talk about this matter. So I don't know if it would be beneficial to bring them back for another time, since they're already here, to provide public comment on this item. And the only other thing I will say, and I'm sure Carol can talk to that more, is that I know there is a bit of a time crunch here from the standpoint of her intent to close with the low-income housing tax credits. This is through CHAFA and through Department of Housing. And so that's why it's before you tonight. You know, I understand it's maybe not the best timing if we consider, you know, municipal elections and all other considerations, but this is the time that it was brought before us. We considered it, not we, the Affordable Housing Committee considered it, and then brought it to you for consideration. So.
Can I make a comment on the timing?
Yes.
Mark, the Affordable Housing Committee actually has an affordable housing plan, correct?
do.
That you present to the RTM every year, which I just came off of the RTM to fill this role. And so you guys actually presented that to us in February. And how does that come about? Like, how do you develop that plan, I guess, is my question.
So, Ms. Kupchak mentioned, certainly I appreciate all of her work. I provided testimony, as did the Affordable Housing Committee, for her efforts, Yeoman's efforts to try to reform 830G. We didn't get as far as any of us would have liked. I think some of those changes are, in fact, meaningful, especially to a town like Fairfield. The reason we're even talking about a second moratorium is that the points that you need for a community like Fairfield, the size of Fairfield, is less burdensome than the initial application. So instead of, the initial calculation is based on 2% of the total number of housing dwelling units in town as of the last decennial census. The second moratorium only requires for communities our size 1.5%. So the threshold is a little lower. And if we're successful, the moratorium lasts a little longer. So again, thank you to, at that time, State Representative Kupchak, who really championed these efforts to get 830G reformed. But to your point, part of the other thing that came into that reform package was it required all communities in the state to develop affordable housing plans every 5 years, which I think is a little much, but we have followed the law. And we created an affordable housing plan that involved public input. In 2022, it runs through 2027, where we'll have to do it all over again. And part of that plan enumerated a number of strategies that we could do on our own to try to increase the number of affordable housing opportunities in our community. One of which was talking about working in partnership with the Housing Authority. And we set a numerical goal. And I think we got a little bit of credit from the state that we had done that. What you're referring to is in the ordinance, both to establish the Affordable Housing Committee and the Housing Trust Fund requires that the Affordable Housing Committee make an annual report to the RTM as to its activities for the preceding year, and also share with the RTM a full accounting of both the revenues received into the trust fund as well as disbursements from the fund. And so again, in full transparency, we've provided those annual reports, and they're available online on the town's website. We've been doing that every year. So I hope that answers your question.
And sometimes do you forecast like what you're gonna work? Cause I thought I remember seeing this number like before in the RTM, like when you presented to us, like something to do with the housing authority, the trust amount, 500 from the trust fund.
Or just
For
in
the
terms of
project.
being strategic
We
and how that
indicated that
funding is
we
used.
had provided a letter in support of their application for low-income housing tax credits, and provided a soft letter of commitment of monies from the Housing Trust Fund for that purpose. Now, a soft letter of commitment is just that. It says that we're supportive of the project, which the Affordable Housing Committee has been since its inception, since the project's inception. In addition to that, it indicates that the project is consistent with the town's adopted affordable housing plan. And it simply noted that we do have a housing trust fund. There was a balance in the fund, and this would be an eligible project. Beyond that, it very clearly states that all final decisions, all allocations from the Housing Trust Fund require the approval of the Affordable Housing Committee, I'm sorry to point at you, Herb, but, as well as the Board of Selectmen. I don't have the authority, but when we talked about that, providing that letter, we did that at a publicly noticed meeting, and we did have some comments on that. So we have, I thought, been fairly transparent throughout this process.
Mark, it was May 14th that we had that prior full discussion with.
I'll yield to my colleague.
I just had one or 2 points, but it was May 14th that we had the full discussion with Carol, this most recent May 14th.
Sorry, who are you, sir?
My name's Herb Limepuller. I'm the current chair of the Affordable Housing Committee.
Thank you.
Also the coordinating director of Fairfield Senior Advocates. But it was May 14th that we had a pretty full discussion when we talked about the soft letter. And then that was succeeded by the more in-depth discussion that we had at October 8th meeting. So.
For the committee, when you're looking on how to expend funds or make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, just want to just be clear on what our role is here, and the agenda item today is really just to approve using these funds. We're not approving a project. This project has already made it through the appropriate town boards. You know, Ms. Martin owns this property. She has an approved plan. You're thinking about why this is a good investment of these funds that were earmarked to support affordable housing, in terms of bang for your buck, or just the thinking of the
So we have several basic objectives as a committee. One is clearly to develop affordable housing, badly needed. And I tell people that it's not some monster looking at the door. You can actually qualify for affordable housing for a family of four, 80% of the area median income, making an income of $100,000. So that's number one objective. A second objective is clearly to develop moratorium because of the tremendous angst that we've all experienced with the 830G debacle. And then finally, to develop additional housing options for the town as a whole. But as Mark said, we certainly look at how we can leverage these funds. And we saw this as, $14,000 per unit as being a pretty good investment. And when we also looked at the cost per moratorium point, it looked like a dramatically advantageous proposition, more like $8,000 per point. And, as Mark said, this really will help us toward the next moratorium. I would say it's by no means certain that we get there without a project like this. We've already seen projects that have been approved at planning and zoning that have gone away. Very recently, 2 projects have gone away. So I don't think any of us want to go through what we went through earlier this year. And so we're always thinking, about a project's merit, but as well as the benefit that we can achieve in this way.
And I will share that in looking at this project, I have multiple thoughts on it, but I'm looking at that second moratorium and what we need to do to get there. And looking back, when we say no to things, that inevitably, if we don't get that moratorium, we're going to get a rush for other projects that are less desirable, in my opinion, than the one before us today. One's high-rise buildings in residential areas that don't fit into the character of the neighborhood. Appreciating this is different, but we're looking at some of the concerns of Reef Road with safety, Berkeley Street. So want to be cognizant of what this means, this project means of keeping that moratorium and possibly delaying. If we don't move forward on this, what exposure do we have to being right back where we were a year ago with these these developers coming in under 830G and being able to bypass our local zoning? And we're in a sweet spot right now that we really can control our own destiny. And I want to make sure that we don't waste that opportunity. So timing wise in terms of a delay, and appreciate that, it got put on this agenda, that there was concern about closing and being able to move this forward. So there's project completion, so we will get these points for the next moratorium.
Just a quick update on the moratorium. I know it's first top of mind for a lot of us. We did apply for and receive the moratorium. It took us about 5 months to work through the prescribed legal process. It's not as simple as just sending it in. You have to notice your intent that you're planning to apply, which is kind of the first notice to the development community. Hey, this community is getting close to making an application. If you have an idea, a thought, a project, now's the time. That required the 30-day public comment period before we could actually make the application. Once we made the application, the state has some time to consider whether the application is complete. Once the state determines the application is complete, they have to notice to the general public that we've received a complete application. Now you have an additional 30 days with which to provide comments, or if you have ideas or projects that you want the town to consider, now's the time to get in line. And then once that happens, they have 90 days with which to review and approve the application. They took the full 90 days. So we received our decision at the end of March. The moratorium runs for 4 years through March of 2029. So, again, backing up, what we need to do in terms of our deadline is probably 5-6 months prior to that, and have all projects that we want to include ready to go. And by that, what you need is you not only have to have projects that are approved, but you have to have projects that are built and issued a certificate of occupancy with the deed restriction in place. And all that documentation does have to be submitted to the Department of Housing for their review. So where we are presently, as I said, we have a lower threshold with which to apply for our second moratorium. We were able to carry over a small number of points from our first application that were not fully utilized, so we were able to carry over 22.25 points. And we have a number of projects that are obviously either built or they're in construction and will be completed well before that deadline. And so if you add all that up, we will have a total of 138.5 points, and we need 329.7 points. So the balance would be 191 points, roughly, of which this project, 81 points, is about 42% of the total that we need. To your point, are there other alternatives? Are there other ways in which we could possibly plug that gap? Sure, it's possible. It's not exactly likely. So based on what we know today, we need to have projects in construction by the end of next year in order for me to provide you with some reasonable assurance that come late 2028, we'll have the requisite number of points to apply, so we won't have a gap that other developers can then exploit. And that's really what this is about. It's about maintaining local control. And we've, as you've noted, we saw 12, 13 applications made pursuant to 830G after we noticed, and we had to hear all of those. And the burden of proof for the Planning and Zoning Commission is there a compelling public health, life safety issue at risk that outweighs the need for affordable housing? And that has to be demonstrated by the evidence in the record. It can't just because we think it might be. We have to have evidence to support that. So we have seen, projects. Recently, we had the decision on Berkeley Road. Good example. You brought up Berkeley Road. It's a 40-unit development, not on 2.5 acres. It's on a much smaller piece of land. It's on a podium, so it's a 4-story building in a densely packed neighborhood. So the Housing Authority, Housing Corporation develops projects at a much less density than does for-profit housing developers, who are 3, 4, 5 times the level of density that was being discussed here. And I think that does need to bear consideration as well. I'm not a big fan of, Brenda, you know, I'm not a fan of 830G. We have fought long and hard to try to make changes to it. You got as far as anyone when you were in the state legislature. But it's the law, and we have to follow it.
With your help, I might add. I just want to say for the record that Mark came to Hartford a lot, testified, as did Carol, to help me in my effort to modify the law to make it actually normal and fair, which it currently is not. And but back to my point, I think, and rightfully so, a lot of people are very, let's just say it, you know, bluntly, pissed off in our town because predatory developers are taking advantage of us all over the place. They really are. And we're at their mercy. We can't do anything. And it's unfortunate. And the only way to change it is to change people's votes in Hartford. And that's all you can really do.
But right now, we have the ability to make decisions that can secure the next moratorium. And I think that we need to be really cognizant of that decisions made now affect where we are. If we end up with that gap where developers, if the law does not change at all, can come in and exploit the statute. And that's really concerning. I understand the concerns about any project, but when we think about what this could end up being, or what if we don't approve this, what could come later if we don't reach the next moratorium, I just want to make sure that that is also something that we're considering right now. About this project, as I said, it is not up to us to change the design. We had the concerns about the wetlands, which I think that we were addressed. What about the building, the homestead itself? I know that that was a concern. Is it staying? I just want to get things out in the public, the things that I know that have come up, and concerns about keeping the building.
Yeah, so the Judd home, anyone that grew up and goes to Holland Hill School knows where the Judd home is. It's the mainstay. It's kind of a, I would consider it, having grown up in the neighborhood, very valuable just to the, fabric of, that area. And we always had plans to restore it. There's a vintage 1895 portion of the house, and then the Judd family added on to the back. So we're taking the back side that is not vintage 1895, and that's where we're going to add on a community spot. But the community room with a patio, but the Judd home itself will be completely refurbished. We're keeping the brown and the white, and we're going to gut the inside of the home to make it into offices, so. Thank you.
And just in terms of height of this structure, I know just in hearing from just neighbors and other development that was happening around town in terms of line compared to other buildings.
Yeah, so the credit to the architect, obviously, and that, the height obviously is also controlled by zoning regulations. The architect, prior to designing the buildings and stuff, did drive through the neighborhoods to see, we have single-family homes that haven't been improved, they're vintage 1950 or 60 capes. But many of the homes on Oakwood and on Country Road, and frankly even on High Street, have been remodeled or completely knocked down, and they've gone up 2.5, 3 stories. So the ridge line of our buildings, I believe, are about 18 inches higher than some of the knockdown and rebuilds in the neighborhood. So granted, if you're a single, obviously one of the abutters is a Cape Cod, just like I grew up in, doesn't really even have a dormer or a shed dormer. That ridge line's going to be much less. But the other infill that has taken place. Certainly, our ridge lines are well within, what I would call normal visibility tolerances to the eye. So we've all driven around town and seen a small cape with, a 40-foot dwelling, multifamily dwelling structure next to it. And I think we all feel the same way about how that looks. First of all, that was never our goal. Our goal was to fit in, for sure. So we did try to pay attention to the heights of the buildings. These are flats with townhouses above. It's a model that everyone, I think, pretty much knows that I also run the Westport Housing Authority. It's a model that we've used very successfully in Westport as well, with having flats over townhouses.
Any questions or comments?
How many stories could be built there in that,
Boy, that's a loaded question, because we're talking about 830G,
well,
right?
that's what I mean, but how
Yeah.
many under 830G could be built there?
I mean, honestly, you could go up 5 stories. I don't want to speak for my for-profit colleagues that do this under a different 830G style. But, you could easily see an application in there from someone for 4 or 5 story building with, and a big building footprint, by the way. I'm talking about a very large building footprint that would have an elevator. So, and the density would probably at least double.
And so it would be much bigger than that. And
Oh, yeah.
You're not planning, you can't, because this has been approved by zoning, so it's not like we're gonna give you this money and you're gonna run out and be able to switch it to a 4-story,
No.
5-story building.
Yeah, no.
It's gotta stay the way it is.
It's
in the plan.
exactly as P and Z approved.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And again, all 40 are affordable, unlike some of these other 830G projects, which are adding, housing stock, but a smaller number.
Yeah, Mark can.
Yeah,
Mark can speak to this. What happens, unfortunately, and problem with the law, back to, Brenda's really good points along the way. When you do a set-aside development where you're a for-profit, you're setting aside 15% at 60% AMI and 15% at 80% AMI. The other 70% are market rate. And so what it's doing to the housing equivalency points, you just keep moving the goalpost. In our particular case, we are not adding any housing. Everything that we're adding is affordable. And that's why, there's such a large amount of points generated with our model.
Ms. Kupchak, any more questions?
No, I think you should go to the public.
Before we go to the public, I just spent some time just looking at this project and spent some time at the senior center, heard a lot about concerns about affordable housing and accessible housing for seniors. Went through the action plan. And for me, just having the apartments for adults with intellectual disabilities on a personal level, a moment of personal privilege, that hits home for me. I have a son who has Down syndrome. I know many families who have children who would like to be independent and are able to do so with a little support. They have to send their children away from home because we don't have that capacity here in town. I think that heard wonderful things about your other Pine Tree here in Fairfield from seniors, that the activities that were there and just felt very welcoming and part of the neighborhood, and appreciate just you being a voice for, and an opportunity potentially for, however this goes, for those adults, because I think that there is a need there, and it's heartwarming and encouraging to see that coming to Fairfield, that these young adults should have an opportunity to live close to their families and be active in their community. Also being close for families potentially to live there, to be part of a neighborhood and be able to walk to school. I think that's a wonderful opportunity for our seniors to have an apartment if they need to downsize or just for their medical needs or family needs. apartments that are totally accessible and welcoming. I think that we need that in Fairfield. From what I have heard, and I thank the Affordable Housing Committee for your work on this. I think that from our purview right here, in terms of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, something again that is not paid for by taxpayer money, this is not coming out of our operating budget. This fund is funded by the fees that developers pay for new construction and additions if there's not an affordable aspect to it. So it's basically developers putting money into this fund to help the town develop more diverse, accessible housing for our residents. We know there's a need. We have a plan as a town. We have entrusted the Affordable Housing Committee, and we have our planning director here as well. And I don't know if I'm welcome if you want to add anything that hasn't, no pressure, but if there's anything else that we should be knowing about in the context of this conversation, I welcome you to give comment. And Mr. Bishop, our conservation director, was on. I want to make sure that all the voices are heard on this.
I have some additional comments.
But I think that we need to, I hate to say local control is used a lot, but right now we are in the position that with this moratorium to really control what our town looks like moving forward for the next 10 years. And I don't want us to miss that opportunity. So I very much appreciate the information brought today and the conversation, and look forward to hearing from the public. But before we go that.
So I asked a lot of those questions that I knew just because I wanted them open to the public, but I was on the RTM when this fund was started in 2018. And one of the reasons we started it was because we need affordable housing in this town. And we need it for two reasons. We need it because of 830G, but we also need it because there's a need for affordable housing. But how do we make it smart affordable housing? You know, when we're seeing these like high buildings that are 5 stories high and that don't level out with what other houses in the neighborhood are, that's not appropriate. And we passed that as a bipartisan, completely unanimous effort on the RTM in 2018. And I remember doing that, and I honestly remember thinking something like this is what we wanted for it. Because in the past, we've actually we've helped Operation Hope a lot, and we've done little small things along the way. And I've been on the RTM for close to 8 years before this, and we had members from both parties saying, but that's not enough, because that doesn't get us enough points. It doesn't get us anywhere in the scope of things, so we're not getting a bang for our dollars that we spend with that fund. And so I understand and I hear and I listen to all your concerns, but when I approved that fund, I thought of this. And I actually went back to try to refresh my memory on that meeting, and I tried to go through everything. And one interesting thing that pops up is a patch article with a picture of Pine Street, which is one of their projects, and it says the RTM approved this fund for projects that look like this. And I was just like, wow. And on a second personal note, I'm a therapist, and I've been to many of these units, and these people are great members of our community. They need this housing. They appreciate this housing. They make great neighbors. They're a great addition to the neighborhood. And I think that's important to know. So, but I'd love to hear public comment.
Just ask you to please come to the podium, just give your name and address for the record. And I know that we see those that are in the chat, we see you. We're gonna go to people in the room, and then we'll go to you.
Hi, my name is Kathy Kane. I live at 951 High Street. I'm across from the building. And I just want to make, first of all, perfectly clear, this is not a matter of NIMBY, not in my backyard. I'm not against affordable housing. I want seniors and special needs people to have it. I've lived in my house for 30 years. And this place is so big, I always knew something would go there. But why couldn't it have been like the cul-de-sac type of place that they made in other places? This is huge. I have lived there for 30 years, and that property housed 2 people. 2 people. And now it's going to be anywhere from 40 to 120 people with their cars, tearing down the wildlife, affecting the watershed area, which it's already been proven that it is. Ron has things on that, my neighbor. And I just don't know why it has to be so big. And I know that ship has flown. She's gotten approval. And yes, you might be the lesser of other evils that would build a story. I'm supposed to be grateful. I'm supposed to be grateful that I am going to go from living in a suburban neighborhood to an urban neighborhood against my will. And I've paid property taxes for 30 years. I'm a good, upstanding member of this community. I volunteer, and I had no say. Every time I went, I was never allowed to talk. It was always at the end of the night when I had to get home to take care of kids. And so now, by the time I'm talking, who cares? It's a done deal, right? And I do want affordable housing. What about the place down near Gold Manor Park where the old Army place was? That's a great place. You know, like there's so many places, and that Fairfield has fallen down on this and changed the neighborhoods in ways that aren't good. Yes, I don't think it's going to be the ugliest thing that could be there. I've seen some of the uglier ones. I have. And I do appreciate. I had a daughter who had a lot of troubles, special needs too. I get it. I'm not saying that's the problem. I think it's great. I'd love for my kids to be able to live across the street from me, okay? I'd love for young adults to move in there. Special needs, senior citizens. My father just passed, but I would love to have him live across the street. But this whole thing is out of control. And anybody who is a citizen of Fairfield, remember when you're voting next week, what you are voting for, who you are voting for, who has helped us, and who has not. Because I'm telling you, if you don't think this is going to change the neighborhood, you're delusional. You're delusional. This is a big, massive thing. 2 people versus 120 people. And we didn't even talk about the parking because now the houses have been scooched to the front with the new design. So the parking was originally going to go in the front, so I'm not sure where that's going to be. So now we're going to have cars all up and down High Street. How many people got up here to speak to the officers of Fairfield about the traffic on High Street already? We did a thing. We had all the parents come and park on High Street one afternoon. Yeah, let's have your kids crossing the street. You'll see how fast those cars go up High Street, because I lived there for 30 years, and I know they zoom already. We're going to add 120 more cars, possibly that many. If you have 3 people in an apartment, it could possibly be that many. So don't tell me this is a little thing that's going to help the seniors and the things. Yes, that might be a good aspect of it. Things aren't always good or bad. Sometimes they're good and they're bad simultaneously. And what about my rights? What about me? What about my neighbors who I know all their names, who we're friends and stuff? Now I'm in an urban setting. I'm not going to know who's living on my block. It's completely changing the neighborhood. And listen, today it's my neighborhood and tomorrow it's yours. So be aware, people. That's all I'm saying.
Hi, Megan Crystal, 139 Oakwood Drive. I've been part of this since we got the letter in 2019. All of our neighbors have been in opposition of this for many reasons. I have a daughter, my son's with now, that walks to school. I've emailed the police department with people blowing through stop signs. Like Kathy said, the sheer amount of people that are going to be moving into this community are going to have negative impacts on safety and traffic in the neighborhood, as well as wetlands. Our own town did not want this. Our own wetlands committee fought this in court. She took us to court, fought us in court. We won twice in the Bridgeport courthouse, and then it was moved to Hartford, where that judge was sided against or went against whatever our findings were for the wetlands committee. So it was one judge was against it and thought that our wetlands findings were not suitable, were suitable, and then the other one was not suitable. And again, these funds from this trust fund, I mean, it's coming from somewhere. So like, I know you're saying the developers are those are fees the developers pay, but they're passing those on to the people that are purchasing those units. So it is residents of the town that are essentially paying into this trust. So I approving these public funds to a project that residents of this town do not want would undermine our trust in the local decision-making process. And I urge you to vote no on transferring these funds and to stand with your residents that you represent and say no to this project. Thank you.
Again, I'm Zing He, and 1070 High Street, and this is the first time I'm attending this kind of meeting. I feel, and I urge the committee to vote no, because still a lot of public anger and mistrust, as earlier speakers saying, this will be reflected from the voting, upcoming voting, and beyond. And I don't discredit the Affordable Housing Committee and the corporation. They are doing their job, of course. Then it comes to the CEO, the executive committee here, and they need to balance out the trade-off. This is more like a marketing department. If they want to sell as many units for their achievements, they can sell the car for not $10,000, for $1,000, then they reach their quota. This is the quota for affordable housing. But on the other hand, you have to balance the whole thing. What is the best for the neighborhood to have 40 units and range from somewhere around plus minus 100 more people, more cars. And I've been in that house in my current house for 26 years. I rarely come to the public podium to speak against this, but I urge the board to look at the overall balance. And when you add more traffic, current traffic is a little bit busy, but not as bad, especially this housing, 980, is around the entrance to the Holland Hill Elementary School. Okay, now if you add ugly, like 5-story, 4-story buildings, that will completely change the neighborhood. And no wonder many people are so angry and they feel this is completely ruining the neighborhood. And without taking into consideration, I understand Mark on behalf of his committee saying you put enough transparency, but as usual, and the public perhaps would need more time to understand what's going on. And the reason not more people here, I learned a lot from the online saying this is insane. And when some other people could not come here, I'm here, and I don't have the voting power, but I urge, and I hear the comments from 2 of the 3 members mentioned that the one suggested tabling this, and the one said traffic, and also uncontrollable structure. Once this is approved without the detailed blueprints, this is kind of hurting the public trust, hurting the public feeling. If you do that, and at the end, this is a neighborhood to the most about 2-story buildings. If you can have that door open for 5-story or 4-story buildings with, say, 100 more people, and I assume about 50 or so more cars in and out within that little place currently without anybody, but think of that in that little place, you add that many people, and add one last thing before I finish, and because the town just approved the consulting work from a consulting firm from New York to study the traffic. And why not you study, just wait at least to the minimum, table it, and if not, denied it, and wait for the situation of the transportation situation. I heard Mark said we need to build a house, and before we know how bad the traffic will be, but that will be too late. Okay, so that is my comment. I understand you are doing your job, but my analogy would be, this is marketing department, but finance department would look at something else instead of business silos. We need the executive to look at that. Thank you very much.
I'm just sorry, we're gonna limit public comment to 3 minutes. Ms. Brown, can you?
More time than 3 minutes.
What?
You took a lot more time than 3 minutes.
Yeah, nobody else limited.
Yeah, I know, it's been years I haven't been able to talk.
I'll be quick, I promise.
No, I'm just, so we can give time for people to talk, and just bring your name and address, please.
Okay, again, my name is James Leask. I reside 1004 High Street, which is 10 feet away from the stone wall where this project is going to be built. And 10 feet beyond that wall, there's going to be a 3-foot structure that when I look out my kitchen window, I'm going to have to look at and consult my wife. Now, that's all done and said. First of all, I would like to thank everybody who works for this community, okay, and who works for the state of Connecticut, who has worked so hard in order to control the monster of 830G. All right, we're all fellow citizens here, and this is a great thing that we have a chance to discuss this. I firmly am on the side of Selectman Kupchak with setting up a meeting that is open, and I am aware of the fact that these meetings are publicized and we have access to find out the information, but I think in order to gain the public's trust again, prior to making a commitment with the money that you're going to allocate, that we should have a meeting that's set up long enough so that all the people, the members of the community, can discuss this together as a community and not on opposing sides. Because you do not solve problems with opposition, you solve problems with communication. I work for a very successful nonprofit in Westport, Connecticut. I work for the plant maintenance department. I am a maintenance technician. Okay, and prior to that, I worked for admin services for the state of New Hampshire. And progress is made with cooperation. There's give and take. When I first heard about this project, there was no mention, okay, of it was going to be affordable housing within the means of what Fairfield expected. Most recently, with this last court win, and with the meeting that a lot of people were unaware of, there was now mentioned that the first floors are going to be reserved for disabled people. Now, a lot of people I know in our neighborhood were upset because this project from its inset wasn't slated to be for senior citizens or people with disabilities or anybody, but veterans for that matter, when nobody's against having affordable housing for people who actually need it. So somehow, in a way, some people in our neighborhood are looking at this new introduction with disabled people, being provided for with first floors. They don't want to put elevators in. They don't want to go higher than 3 floors. Is that non-transparency again? It's a mention of providing this or changing it. Now, this was approved by the Superior Court based upon its original inception and what was told to the town originally by Ms. Martin. And by no means do I mean there's no insult from me to you at all, okay? And I understand how this is all working, and the world is moving fast, okay? But there is a way for us to work as a community in order to solve these problems, provide what we need to get past the moratorium or meet whatever your credits are. But what I'm saying is this, is that respectfully, I would hope that you would vote no at this moment and push it past the elections. I think it would be more beneficial to our community, than than voting on it right now just to get it done and over with. And I would also like to say that I'm representing, and I'll be done in a second, but I'm representing my wife, okay, Pamela Leask, okay, who is, the Sennises have lived right next door to the judge for 75, that family's 4 generations were in a house right next door.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Pine?
Hi.
She did.
I'm Pine, 36 Highland Road. My property is about 500 feet from the project. So this is all about the wetlands. The Judge Estate, the back of the Judge Estate wetlands are part of the Rooster River watershed. As we know, watershed floods. In fact, Christine Vahey McCarthy got $3.5 million to try to mitigate the flooding in this watershed. So we have Rooster River watershed in the back of this property. And my neighbors and myself are concerned about flooding. You're going to put 4 massive buildings with their concrete footings. Is it 5? 5 buildings? Oh, sorry, it's even worse. 5 buildings with massive footings into the groundwater. And I compare it to like having a full glass of water and you're going to put 5 big ice cubes in it. The water is going to go over the top of the glass. Okay, I know that's kind of like simplistic. I also have a problem with the transparency. Fairfield Housing Corporation is a private corporation. They don't need public hearings. They don't need the town to tell them anything. They went and bought this property without anybody's approval. They got their mortgage from wherever. And then all of a sudden they want money from the town. The town that gets their money from fees, zoning fees, building fees, that is our money. And people are upset that the zoning commission turned this down twice. They never voted for this project, okay? The judge up in Hartford overruled them. But our town people, our wetlands commission denied this project because of the possibility of flooding, and it's in the wetlands. Liability. Let's say the town gives them this money, and let's say this project goes south, and all of a sudden people's basements get flooded. Lawsuits. Is the town going to be liable because we contributed money to this? Why don't the Fairfield Housing Corporation take all the risk? They want this project, let them get their money, keep the town out of it. Because if there becomes a problem with flooding in the Rooster River watershed area, we're going to end up part of that lawsuit. So that's all I got to say. It's a slippery slope. One other thing. We give money from our housing trust fund. What's to say some other developer says, hey, I have an 833 project. I want money from the housing. So you're going to up a slippery slope. Everybody's going to want money from our housing trust fund, okay? I think that's a bad sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd said I wasn't going to speak, but since Mark's been up at the podium, why not? Tom McCarthy, 15 Lovers Lane. I live down the bottom of High Street. All I want to say is this. Selectman, but you make a very valid point that if we don't act, there's a cost associated with that, of potentially putting us in a position where we're even more at risk with the impacts of 830G. I understand that. But the fact is that there's a cost in acting in favor of it as well. And the problem is that the cost is not borne evenly across the town of Fairfield. It's disproportionately borne by the people who live in the vicinity. And for that reason, it's clearly unfair. And also for that reason, I would suggest and offer to you that Selectwoman Kupchak's suggestion makes no sense at this point in time. Let's table it, go back to the Housing Commission, let everybody huddle up on this and make the decision. I think it'd be premature at this point in time to decide on this project and go forward, especially when there's time to do so and let everybody weigh in, because clearly the opposition has valid points. And clearly they're the ones who will bear the major burden of the cost. Because I mean, as they pointed out, as citizens, we ought to have the right to enjoy the quiet enjoyment of our neighborhoods and our municipalities. That's all I want to say.
Hello, board. Hello, neighbors. My name is Jackson Shostak. I helped inform everyone about this public funding for the project. I grew up going to Holland Hill. I was a walker from Figler Avenue. I live on Figler Avenue, by the way. And you know, this project has always been controversial, and no matter what, it's going to go forward. But a lot of neighbors are still frustrated. You've been hearing them tonight. There's a lot of emotion in the issue. They have concern over the environment, concern over traffic safety, especially being so close to Holland Hill. You know, neighbors feel left out and unheard. I door knocked about 200 doors in the neighborhood, and a lot of people didn't even know the status, the court status of 980 High Street. So I informed them of that. I also informed them of the Affordable Housing Committee's meeting, and they were shocked. They were not told, they were not informed. Sure, everything's made available online, but it doesn't hurt to really get into the neighborhood, call a meeting at Holland Hill, just like they did in 2019. I don't think there's been one since in the neighborhood where they can go locally, close to home, close to their kids, close to their parents at night, to hear about this project and to hear about the proposed public funding for it. Now, I agree that, you know, being someone who makes under 80% of median income in Fairfield, that Fairfield does need affordable housing. But, you know, given the neighborhood's concerns, I don't think this is the best place to do it. Obviously, the law decides otherwise, and the courts decided otherwise. And so, you know, I just feel unsettled and a little hesitant in giving this project the more than $500,000, $500,000 to a developer who sued the town multiple times to get this through. And I know you're a nonprofit, and I value that. And I do value your mission, again. But, you know, to push through a project that was denied by the town is a little silly, you know, to give that money back. Now, if you're looking at it, breaking down the math, about, you know, $14,000 would be spent on each unit. And so if you're looking at what people are paying in property taxes, that's essentially almost a year in property taxes going towards the project. Now, I know the fund itself is not directly, no, but it is funded by code. It's funded by grants, fees, loans, and monies given through the state and federal government. I wonder how they got that. So, you know, I do hope that the board at least tables this motion so we can have a meeting at Holland Hill. I hope that the RTM members who represent District 6 and 7 can attend that. I know they couldn't make it today, I guess. I don't see any in the room. But I think, you know, this project hasn't been truly transparent because you're sensing that frustration. And I hope you guys can at least table this motion. Thank you.
Good job, Jackson. Did you time yourself?
Kind of. Were you concerned about shaving?
Anyone else in the room like to give public comment? Anyone in the hall?
Sure.
Who's fighting?
I'm Jerry Weibel. I live at 75 Oakwood Drive. My house is the backyard. It's directly into the proposed property. And I know other people here have lived here a lot longer than I have and have much more heated opinions than I do on it. I just don't want the eyesore. But I did hear a couple of things during this meeting. And one was Mark saying that he didn't like stuff being legislated over us by people who weren't local. And I think you're hearing tonight from a lot of the people who really are local to this specific area. And the other thing I wanted to say is that house that Carol said is so brown and white and, you know, historical and everything, that's fallen into a big set of disrepair. And I know there's plans to improve it, but if it's fallen into such disrepair under the watch of the people who own it now, I wouldn't be giving them more money, whether it was from taxpayers or from grants or funds or whatnot,
because if that's the way they take care of this historical building, why would we trust them with more money to build an even bigger structure? So that's all. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Okay.
Good evening. I'm State Representative Sarah Kitt, 538 Winnipogue Drive. I hear the anger and the frustration and the fear in the room. I do, and I can understand it. I live in a small community as well that used to be mostly capes, but I've seen them one by one being torn down and replaced with gigantic houses, single-family homes that are well over $1 million. And my fear is if we do not approve this, and Carol's company will probably end up, I won't speak for you, but I can see it having to relinquish this property. It will go to a developer who will either put up a very large multi-million-dollar house or subdivide it and put several multi-million-dollar houses without any affordable units. This is being designed by someone from our community. Carol is part of this community, and her organization has been part of this community. I have toured and visited with people in the Pine Tree Estates community, and they are such pride in their neighborhood, in their community, and being able to be part of this town that we all love. If you look at the pictures and the diagrams for this development, it is within scale of what people say they want. Everybody here says they want affordable housing here in Fairfield. But where? We say, you hear, oh, we put it in Gold Manor. We want it on the other side of town. I can tell you, in my district, people don't want it in the 134th. People say the beach is overdeveloped. People say there's too much development down, all over town. This is a good build. This is a beautiful design. It is being developed by a respected corporation with a long track history here in our community. And it gets us to where we want to be in our housing goals. We talk about local control. We need to start exerting our local responsibility to meeting our housing needs. And we can push this down the road and another month and another month to another year, and we're up against the end of our moratorium. We have not offered, so I've only been in office for 3 years here at the state level. I was on the TPZ before. I've yet to see a proposal other than this one come before the town boards that offers a real solution to increasing the stock of affordable housing at different levels. This ticks all the boxes everybody says they want. They just don't want it where it's being put, no matter what neighborhood we put it in. So I ask everybody here who is against it to offer a solution, a real solution that the town, that the nonprofit can afford to, where they can afford to build, and where the design will fit within the neighborhood. This project ticks all the boxes, and if we deny it, we're going to be right back where we were several months ago before we got the moratorium, and I can guarantee you what's going to go in there is going to be a lot less attractive and a lot less farther away from what this town needs. And speaking on a personal behalf, I've got 3 adult children living in my house. I would very much like to see them move out. And these are units for people who live here in town already, who are people's, adults who want to downsize, children who are graduating from college and want to come back here, teachers who want to live in the communities where they teach. This is housing people need. It's what people say they want. So sure, we could hold another meeting, but at that meeting, I guarantee you we're going to have more people say, well, I wasn't aware, we need to have another meeting. And at some point, we as leaders in this town need to make the hard decisions and get to a yes. I've been hearing no, no, no since I started serving on town boards and commissions 6 or 7 years ago. And we have to find a way to get to yes, and I believe this is a good way to get to yes. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Carolyn Furtgo. I live at 750 Road. 750 Reef Road. And I keep hearing this word affordable. We've gotten all these huge high-rises in here. These developers have come in here under the name of affordable. There's like 3 or 4 apartments that are affordable, and I checked into it. The rest of them are $3,000. We've got high-rises that tower over our community. This is not cohesive with this colonial town, which once was a colonial town. And I just, I went to a meeting on Reef Road. We had a second meeting, and the public wasn't even allowed to respond. And Reef Road all our vital facilities are down there. It floods all the time, and the parking was a big issue, but it went through anyway. So, and what is affordable housing? I mean, if you've got a few apartments that are affordable and you've got other apartments that are $3,000, how is that affordable? And every time you look at the newspaper, we haven't met our quota. Why haven't we met our quota?
Do we ever? We don't usually do back and forth, but one thing that this project that we're talking about today, every unit is affordable. It's not similar to the project that you're talking about.
Yeah, but and when does the moratorium started already?
It has, but there was a rush of applicants in that window before we got to the moratorium that we were in now. So Reef Road was one of those that came in at the last minute. And earlier in the meeting, my concern is if we do nothing in the 4 years that we have to get new housing stock built, we're gonna be in the exact same.
They've been doing this for years.
And I know,
and we haven't gotten affordable housing.
And right now,
How are these people getting here under affordable housing and not putting all affordable housing in?
That's just the market, part of it, let me, and I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm breaking the rules. I think that part of it, in terms of back and forth, we've talked about, some of this is private property. People purchase private property and the market dictates what people need and what people will pay. So if you're a developer that's looking to make, and you're looking to make some money, that's, I think.
Well, you just
I'm
said
not
the
saying that,
point.
I am not
They're
saying.
making the money and we're left with the burden.
I am not saying that it is right by any, but I think that is part of the reason why certain housing projects are built the way that they are.
We had so many serious concerns that should have prevented that the complex going up on Reef Road. There's constant traffic, cars parked on both sides. A lot of, now it looks like it turned into a dormitory. We don't have enough parking. We've got emergency vehicles that have to drive up the middle of the road because there's parking on both sides. We've got school buses, the trucks. And yet, this went through. It just seems like our concerns weren't heard.
Well, I think that is one of the concerns about 830G. Is
And
that
now they supposedly are putting it through with moderations. What are those?
We're getting off topic from the project.
It's the same thing, and I feel for these people on High Street.
Ma'am, but we're not here to talk about Reef Road. But
it's the same thing.
I would
It's the same thing.
I would just say,
And I just want to express my feelings for them because I know how they feel. There's no more, I can't even feel more frustration.
Thank you.
Anyway, can I just do a follow-up?
No, only one, I'm sorry, one public comment. We have people come up.
I've been sitting so long, I can't walk. I keep fingers crossed that I can talk. It's really just a comment about, of course, the appreciation.
You say your name and address?
Yeah, well, appreciation of the meeting. Hi, my name's Judy Henry, and I live at Trefoil Court, and that's one of the housing projects. And I'm so grateful for it. I've lived in Fairfield for 74 years. I'm here for you to urge you to transfer the funds to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to the Fairfield Housing Corporation for their development at 980 High Street, of which I've walked on that street many times in my 74 years, trust me. The town is where I've formed lifetime friendships, enjoyed a high-quality education, volunteered my time to coach teenage town sports teams. I was one of the original members of Safe Rides in Fairfield, volunteered at the Christmas Tree Festival, and worked in many banks in town serving the community. I've seen our community grow and evolve, and I value what makes Fairfield special: our neighborhoods, schools, and our commitment to being a strong community that takes care of everyone. I understand firsthand the importance of affordable housing in our community as a resident of the Fairfield Housing Corporation at Trefoil Court. Without the housing options that Fairfield Housing Corporation provides, myself and many people would be forced to leave the town we call home. I went through my own housing crisis, and we should not delay building more affordable housing, no matter where it is. So let's embrace the town's ability to support the project, please. Sorry I'm so emotional, but it is very personal. Thank you.
Thank you. We have remote public comment. We can go back.
Sure, absolutely. Not at all.
I don't want to. Karen McCormick, can we unmute her so she can give comment?
She's still muted. I'm asking her to unmute.
Okay.
Maybe she stepped away.
Okay, well, let's go to the next, we'll swing back to her, maybe she stepped away. Margaret Driscoll.
Hi, can you hear me?
You can.
I can't turn my video on, but that's fine. So my name is Margaret Driscoll, and I'm at 56 Country Road in a low ridgeline cape, which directly abuts 980 High Street. I am 100% for affordable housing, and I volunteered within the unhomed and underhomed communities locally, and they're in desperate need of affordable options. It's a major problem all over, not just Connecticut, obviously all over. Many of us could be one layoff away from needing an affordable housing solution. And I do want to thank Brenda for summarizing our concerns well and suggesting a best case scenario today, which is to delay your vote. I think that's an excellent suggestion. From my perspective as a resident and as a neighbor, our community locally has spent 7 years and thousands of our own dollars coming together to defend this against this project. Fairfield has also spent resources and funds defending the local decision of the local commission and gone to state court, as we mentioned. 980 High Street is not Pine Tree, just to respond to that. I've been to Pine Tree and it fits the community. It looks great. And so people can be for affordable housing and also still oppose a ridiculous for-profit development that doesn't fit into the community and could have a negative impact. To the state rep's point, I'm sorry I didn't get her name. I would love to sit down with anyone to discuss other solutions for affordable housing. I have a ton of them right off the top of my head. And I get that the board tonight might be focused on housing points and moratoriums and the town's benefit by saying yes to this, but the project is grossly oversized and doesn't fit into our neighborhood despite what was said earlier. It was approved by zoning because of 830G, not because it's reasonable or a good addition to our neighborhood. Your moratorium you mentioned, or the moratorium, is 5 years. Some of us might live here for the rest of our lives. So this project could be advantageous to reaching housing goals today. But what about the neighbors? Who in Fairfield is standing up for our interests? You're voting yes is in opposition to years of intense and passionate pushback from the community. You can tell by all of our voices. This enormous project will stand 10 feet from our property lines, mine included. Right now I see an open field, families of deer, other wildlife, and my house does not flood currently. Soon I'll see a 3-story apartment building, parking lot lights, and listen to HVAC units. The scale is grossly oversized for a 2-acre site with wetlands, and it's in a neighborhood of single-family homes. So as you've heard, there are intense and legitimate concerns around increased flooding, traffic, safety, and parking problems. As I've stated, the Conservation Commission denied this multiple times for its significant impact, and that includes the revised plan that Carol stated was improved. The developer has deep pockets, so they sued and won in Hartford, We couldn't keep up with the deep pockets, so eventually they do win. It's going to get built eventually, but the concerns that we residents had prior to that day didn't go away. Over the years, we've tried several times to work with Ms. Martin toward a more reasonable plan, but scaling down, it turns out, is not profitable because this enormous project squeezed into 2 acres is all about maximizing profits. For 7 years, Carol and FHC has done everything to keep this project moving forward and invested hundreds of thousands in carrying costs and faced consistent and ongoing passionate opposition by the neighborhood. Why did they keep going? Because investors and developers will significantly profit using affordable housing units as a convenient side effect. So now the same developer is requesting over half of the town's affordable housing trust fund for a project that has faced years of intense community opposition. So voting yes on this today would greatly undermine public trust. It would oppose the Conservation Commission's multiple decisions and set a very troubling precedent for future developments, as a gentleman mentioned earlier. Fairfield Trust Fund should support responsible community-backed projects that align with our values and not ones that boldly disregard them. In court, please stand with the residents. Please support us. Please stand with the Fairfield Conservation Commission and vote no to this funding request. At the very least, please table this. As you see today, there's significant public concern, and that should be part of your role and your consideration, equal to or more important than helping the affordable housing goals. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Ms. McCormick, are you back? Ms. Marshall, online? They logged off, okay. Anyone else in the room?
Thank you, Elizabeth Zezima, 160 Fairfield Woods Road. I'm the current majority leader on the RTM, and I represent District 4. In reference to this item, because it has come up a number of times, I want to make sure the public is aware of what is in the purview of the RTM and our authority. And we have no authority over housing items at all. We do hear the report, as Selectman Spoliar explained, and we did approve the housing fund, but we do not have any authority over matters such as this. I think it's important because I see, you know, when an emotional issue, people really do sometimes get the wrong impression. I've seen on social media, I've seen in public comment, I've seen in campaign materials. Please understand that the RTM, if somebody's promising you that's running for the RTM that they can do something about this, that is misinformation. So we do take our constituents' concerns very seriously. We're willing to sit and talk about anything and direct them to the right resource within town, but we do not vote on these matters. We have no authority and we have no decision-making power in these matters, and I just wanted to make that clear for the public. And I do appreciate the comments from the table about what we need in terms of affordable housing, and this is really that sweet spot for many of the concerns and the needs that we have as a community. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Hi, good evening. My name is Donna Blewett. I'm at 100 Cedar Road. I drive up and down High Street a few times. It's a way to access different roads. And I have a friend who actually lives right next door to the unit or the housing. And I mentioned getting in and out of her driveway is tough because of all of the craziness that's on the street of High Street to begin with. But I have to appreciate Margaret Driscoll's comments. I think she concisely put a lot of things together. Sarah, I think your comments were a little off because, you know, you said another developer could come in and build 1 or 2 units or multiple units. We're talking about 5 units with 8 buildings in it. That's 40 properties on 2.5 acres. That makes, you know, what's the zoning for that town? Is it half an acre? For that section of town, is it half an acre? Is it a quarter an acre? Is it a full acre? 40 units on 2.5 acres makes it way less than like an eighth of an acre per unit. So having multiple units by another developer. I do appreciate the fact that there should be affordable housings in Fairfield. Is this the proper section? I don't believe so. You're cramming in a residential unit. Who else made the comment? She left already. But the Reef Road and also Unquo Road next, or where they developed on, by the way, I've been in Fairfield 66 years, or 66 years in a couple of days. The Knights of Columbus, they built, and every time they're building, they're going, the variances that are allowed through the Town Planning and Zoning Variance Committee or Appeals Committee, it has really ruined the town. And we had another member who talked about the slippery slope. We are way down that slippery slope at this point because of all the variances that have been allowed by Town Planning and Zoning Appeals, by Town Planning and Zoning. And, I'm thinking, what about in the northern section of Fairfield, where there's a lot more open space? There's then on not Judd Street, but High Street, where, I don't know what the zoning is there. Is it a half an acre or an acre? I don't think it's an acre. It's got it, that property's on 2.5 acres. But, as you said, it's been built back in the 1800s. So somewhere along the line, Fairfield has to get control of the overbuilding that's happening. You keep blaming 830G, I get that, that this has been jammed down the throats by the state of Connecticut, but Fairfield is completely different than it was 20 years ago, much less 40 years ago, much less 60 years ago. And it's affecting everything. And one of the things that didn't get brought up is how are the sewers going to be handling 40 units? Where you're going to have potentially 40 more to 120 more people taking showers, flushing toilets, washing dishes, doing dishes. How are the sewers going to be handling it in the wetland area? There's so many parts of the infrastructure of Fairfield that are affected, aside from all the other public services that, the town pays for together. That's my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? I asked our conservation director to join us. I forgot, I didn't realize that he was online. Mr. Bishop, are you still there? Can you just address the conservation concerns about the wetlands, being that there has been changes in the plans since this was first presented? And concerns about flooding?
Yeah, Tim Bishop, for the record, Conservation Director. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yeah, thank you. Excuse me. I did just want to point out that, let me just change my sound here. Can you still hear me?
We can.
Okay, good. I was just changing my headset. I did want to point out that I appreciate Carol Martin's summary earlier on in the call. I thought that was accurate and well summarized as far as the historic aspects of the process that this property has undergone as it relates to the Inland Wetland Agency and the wetlands that are on site. But I do want to say, at least from a department head standpoint, on behalf of the Conservation Department and the Commission, acting as the Inland Wetland Agency, that whether any of us like the project or not is irrelevant to the purview of the Inland Wetland Agency, whose pure focus is the natural resources on site and off site in this particular case. So I just wanted to highlight the fact that she mentioned collaboration. I think I counted 4 times, and that is the best word I could use to describe the process from a wetlands perspective. We retained Redness and Mead on behalf of the town and the Wetland Agency who's a well-respected engineer out of Stanford. It's a big firm. And I would say, agree again that the collaboration between the Redness and Mead representing the town's interests, working with the applicant's engineer, was about a 6-month process, and the result was a dramatic difference between what they started with and then what the design we ended up with 6 months later. As it relates to stormwater management specifically, which was, if I recall, the sticking point to the first denial from the court, the judge's comments related to stormwater was what really the focus on the second go-round in the application that came before us in, I think, 2022. So it even despite the denial, I think there was a lot going on, but obviously the court saw that based on the record that the agency's concerns and the reason for their denial did not match what the judge thought, and I think it became a different project by the end. So I just wanted to share that from my perspective.
Do you feel the concerns about stormwater have been met by the new design?
I have not looked at them in a long time, but I think I do think they definitely got better, and those town resources were utilized to get that design to a better design that was adequate, and obviously the courts, based on the judge's decision, felt that way as well. So. I think stormwater is a significant issue, and as our concern is how that affects the development and the design and the management of that stormwater affects the on-site and adjacent wetlands. I think in that respect that the design that was approved is a much better design than what we started with. But I do hear flooding as a concern, and that's a concern across town, whether these developments are being built or not. You add the more impervious surfaces you add, obviously that water has to go somewhere. There's a lot of developments out there that aren't managing stormwater properly and contributing significantly to flooding all over. This, I think, has the best stormwater management design that's available, and that came through the collaboration and review process by the Inland Wetland Agency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions?
I have no more questions. Just one more comment.
Yep.
I just want to be sure. Oh, there's Rob Blanchard.
Okay. Yeah, we can go to the public again.
Or stay on the
Mr.
public.
Or stay on the public. Mr. Blanchard?
Hi, good evening. Sorry I can't be there in person. I'm commuting home from Hartford. Otherwise, I'd like to be there. So I've heard about this issue for a couple years, and I won't be disingenuous. And as Representative Zezima said, and say that we can totally stop this project. As many have said, a court overruled it. But I do think there's some merit to some of the neighbors' concerns, as I've heard about flooding. And I ask that maybe we allow for more time so that those concerns can be addressed and potentially table this as well. But if that cannot happen, I do ask that the Housing Authority be a good collaborator and partner with the neighbors throughout this process and ensure that there's communication and transparency, and that if there are God forbid, issues of flooding that arises, that they be addressed and handled so that there's as minimal impact on the neighbors and their properties as possible. So I hope that is a path forward that we can take if this is approved, or if there's more time for more information. just wanted to speak up on their behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McCormick, are you on?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. I was on earlier. I had to get off because I had other business to attend to, but I just logged back on, and I'd like to, I guess, start by, I haven't listened to all the comments, so I'm not sure if anyone has addressed this issue, but it's certainly been the issue that's been of most concern to me, and that is the issue of transparency or lack thereof. This matter was set down without proper notice before the Affordable Housing Committee at a meeting that was held on December 18th of 2024. And the only agenda item that was opaquely related was some kind of an update on the Housing Development Fund. There was no specific reference to 980 High Street. There was no specific reference to anyone speaking on behalf of the project. And Carol Martin appeared at that meeting. I viewed the meeting again today, and it looked like, to me, that there was a fix-in, that it was planned for her to be there with her and Mr. Barnhart, that there was an understanding that she would appear, and she spoke on the matter for almost 6 minutes. The entire discussion about 980 High Street took place over the span of about 10 minutes. And after that meeting, there was actually a comment made, I forget which commission member it was or committee member it was, I couldn't tell based upon the video, who said, "How are the neighbors over there? Are they relatively quiet?" And Ms. Martin responded, "Yeah, you haven't really gotten too many calls." Well, perhaps that's because nobody knew that there was this process going on in the background to have Mr. Barnhart issue what's called a soft commitment letter. And I just think that, if that's been the practice of that committee, to tap into more than 1/2 of the Housing Development Fund without having it properly noticed, without having an opportunity for the neighbors to be heard on it. And then she used that letter in her own admission and statements in the May of 2025 meeting. She used that letter to secure almost $5 million in tax credits for her development costs. And she specifically attributed her securing those tax credits to the fact that she had gotten this soft commitment letter from Mr. Barnhart. And I just think it's outrageous that, even the October of 2025 meeting that Mr. Barnhart referenced earlier, he said that this was properly noticed. Everybody had an opportunity to be heard. There's nothing in the agenda that talks about the fact that, other than it says Housing Development Fund. We spent an awful lot of time. I've been waiting to speak, I think, at this point, and you guys have been there a long time, and I appreciate the time you put in, by the way. But it's been a 3-hour-long meeting. I waited for an hour and a half and finally realized I had to get off because I had other things to do. But, to expect that people are going to sit at a meeting at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon and wait 3 hours to speak and to offer an opinion that what's happening here is without the complete and utter decency to let the public and these neighbors know what's going on and to properly notice an agenda item and then backdoor it and give approval for giving more than half of this fund that's been accumulated to her. It's outrageous. And her website to this day, because I looked it up last night, still says that not 100% of those proposed apartments are going to be affordable under the affordable housing statute, that they're not all, they're still going to be, I think there were 8 out of the 40 that were going to be market rate. So her own website isn't even updated. And I just think it's just unfair to the citizens and the taxpayers of this town to expect that these funds are going to be allocated to this project after all that these neighbors have been through, all the fights that they were put through, the fact that we did have a wetlands commission who determined that this was not in the best interest of our town. It wasn't in the best interest of the environment. And they had a Superior Court judge who told them basically, well, if they do this, that, or the other, it's going to be approved. So they had no choice but to approve it in the end. And there's a complete lack of transparency. And if this is the way Mr. Barnhart operates, I would strongly suggest in the future that if he's going to issue soft commitment letters, that he take a vote of the actual committee, because there was no formal vote at that December 18th of 2024 meeting. There was no sense of the body. I think there was one person who chimed in who said, hey, it sounds like a good idea. There's like 6 or 7 other committee members and nobody spoke on the issue. So I don't know where he thought that just because somebody thought it was a good idea that he was then going to take off and issue the soft commitment letter based upon one person chiming in that they liked the idea. I did email Mr. Barnhart in May of this year asking for a copy of the soft commitment letter. He did immediately respond and provide it. And Mr. I can't really pronounce his last name correctly probably, but Herb Lichtmiller, the chair of that committee, responded back and said, we discussed it at the December meeting and we would have approved it. I mean, the use of the word would is very telling.
Finish your sentence. You're at time, Ms. McCormick. Sorry.
Okay.
Just finish your sentence.
I think the use of the word would have approved it is prospective. It's not current. It's not. It didn't speak to the actual issue before the committee that day. If in fact the committee had approved it, he would have probably have used the word, we did discuss it and we did agree that he could issue the soft commitment letter. He used the very specific word that we would have approved it. Thank you. I think the request should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment and for your patience.
Thank you.
Well,
I mean, I want to give you your name.
my name.
She
so
brought your name, so I want to give you the.
I would like to just, for the record.
Yes, sir.
The October 8th, 2025 agenda and meeting notice for the Affordable Housing Committee says, under new business, to hear, consider, and act upon a proposed allocation from the Housing Trust Fund in support of a proposed 40-unit assisted housing development at 980 High Street. We had allocated 45 minutes to that conversation. So I can't be any clearer. And in reference to the December meeting, there was a conversation as to whether a motion would be necessary. And I recalled, I stated at that time, I didn't think so because I've provided similar letters to other nonprofits on Greenfield Street and in support of Pine Tree's efforts to acquire Byro Street, which is now the subject of an 830G application. And all those instances, we discussed it, but I didn't require a specific act to do that because it says any allocation requires the approval of the Board of Selectmen and the Affordable Housing Committee. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I do think just again that the vote to expend these funds was made by the committee. It was properly noticed, and that is why they did take proper action, which is why it is on our agenda here today, which was also properly noticed, and clearly by the hours of public comment that we've heard, the public has been engaged, and I thank in part by neighborhood advocacy as well in spreading the word that we have given public comment. I again want to go back to, it is not the Board of Selectmen's purview to discuss the design of this project. We are simply acting on the recommendation of the Affordable Housing Committee to approve spending these funds to move this affordable housing project forward. Respect the work of the committee, similar to respecting the work of other town committees that moved this project forward years ago. Understand the concerns about flooding in the area. What I'm hearing, some of it is somewhat a separate issue with Rooster River that we, as a town, are addressing that through a separate project. I'm not really sure what information is going to change if we table this. This is Ms. Martin's property. The town does not own this property. We are not responsible for the plan that she put forward. She put forward to a plan that went through all the other boards. I will just say that the thing that came up at sewer, I am assuming that the WPCA has to approve any new development. They look at the capacity in the pipe. So that is part of the process that has been looked at, just to get the facts in the record there in terms of moving that forward. And I say that in no way to minimize the concerns of the neighborhood. I appreciate that this is going to change your neighborhood. I do hope that you will come to realize that it is a positive change to your neighborhood if it is approved. I hope that Ms. Martin, she's been here, she's been taking notes. I hope that she listens to the concerns and continues the conversation if this moves forward. I have been following this on and off for the last 6 years just through the news, and did go back to some past meetings where it was able to find which meetings this was discussed because it was properly noticed on the agenda. Read the Affordable Housing Plan, which clearly outlines how the committee would use the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Again, not taxpayer money. It seems like this is an appropriate use of these funds to support development. Would I potentially change what that looks like? I might. Do I support the mission of it? I do. But it's not my job to change at this point what it looks like. I don't have that power and I don't have that control. So very much looking at what we have before us today, and appreciate that if we table it and have another meeting, it would be a meeting of the Affordable Housing Committee. I don't know if more information would change the action that that committee has taken. And Ms. Martin can move this project forward as she sees fit at this point. Because it is her, it is her project and it is her property. I do appreciate, the changes that were made over the years in terms of addressing the concerns around stormwater, and do think that the town, would appreciate that taxpayer dollars went into that. It's unfortunate that the process had to play out that way, but it sounds like the use of those dollars led to a better plan for storm management. Ms. Kupchak, do you have any comments? Any other comments?
Yes, and I mean, I think I feel the same way as I felt earlier. I think that evidenced by the fact that the majority of this meeting, frankly, this item should have been standalone. To someone's point, having over a 4-hour meeting, having people wait that long to be able to provide public comment, and that's why I shared earlier that we should table it, because I think that the Affordable Housing Committee, and I'm not saying they're going to change it, and of course, no one's changing it. This project has been approved and it will be built. But to allow the public, to give them that opportunity to trust in their government, that there is going to be a widely publicized meeting, even in your newsletter, that's sent out and says, come to this meeting with the Affordable Housing Committee, potentially an off-site meeting where they could have it at Holland Hill, as was done in the past, not to weigh in whether the project's going forward or not, because obviously it is going forward, but to explain to the public that what the Housing Trust Fund is and how it's going to be utilized, to give people an opportunity to better understand all of this, because, evidenced by some of the comments, a lot of people don't, and it is very complicated. I mean, God, when I first got into the legislature, it took me a year to understand 8-30G. It was so complicated, and it is complicated. So I just think to give not just the people who live in the neighborhood. You saw those emails, both of you. We were on them, all of us together. There was a tremendous amount of feedback, all asking us not to approve this. I think we maybe got 3 that said to vote for it out of way over 100. And so what I'm saying is that in the effort to be like we are, like a government that listens to the people. I'm not saying that it's gonna stop the project. I'm just saying allow people the opportunity to hear more, to understand how the Housing Trust Fund works. Let the affordable housing people be there. Let Mark be there. Let Carol be there. And have a conversation. If you want, ask him if he would attend to discuss the concerns of flooding. I just think that that's the right thing to do. To someone's point or several people's points, these people have showed up for many, many, many meetings, and the fact that they didn't show up to those meetings means they really didn't know about it. And maybe a little more effort could have been made to inform them of that. So I'm just humbly and respectfully asking that we table this and ask them to have the meeting in the next week or two, and then we can come back and vote on this item then. That's all. I think that would be the right thing to do.
I don't, first of all, I just want to say in terms of the timing of this meeting, the meeting started at 4, we took this item up at 5, and it's after 7 in large part because we have afforded the public time to speak. So, you know, I think that if we had an evening meeting that started at 7, we would probably run into the same problem. People would need to wait to speak, only at that point it would be, you know, later, having been on the Board of Ed and had town hall meetings that went to midnight. I think it works both ways. I think that this is me, and we can make a formal motion. I'm ready to take action today, in part because, as you said, the project's not gonna change. I don't wanna give people false hope in thinking that it's going to change if they come to a town hall meeting and share their stories and think that it's going to change a project that's already been approved and moving forward and in the hands of somebody who has, you know, the unapproved plan.
I think it's more about the money, really. The town investing in it and to get feedback on our residents, if they feel that that's a worthy investment of the housing. I think it's just the right thing to do. I mean, listen, I'm gonna abstain if we can't table it. I think that we should do that. I think it's the right thing to do, so that our community can at least feel like their government gave them a chance. You know, how many people showed up tonight because maybe they just found out about it. There's a lot of people who didn't. I don't think a week or two is gonna throw off everything. I think it's just, you know, the respectful thing to do for the residents of our community.
Can I comment?
You can, Ms. Williams.
I really hesitate to table it because we know this project's going to happen. And I know it's about the money. Why are we giving somebody money that we've fought with in court? And the reason why I would consider giving them money is I know this project's gonna happen. I know this is a good project in relation to what other projects could be. So if we don't give her this money now and we extend the time and we miss our second moratorium, we're opening up ourselves to 4 or 5-story projects across town that can slide in. So I'm sorry, I hear you guys, I feel for you guys, I know you're gonna have change in your neighborhood, and I'm sorry, but I have to think of the town as a whole, and somebody mentioned it affecting everywhere, and if we approve this, then for money, then we're setting ourselves up to approve everything? No, we're setting ourselves up to not approve everything. We're setting ourselves up to approve appropriate, affordable housing. And so I think this is appropriate, and I don't want to have other things come in that are not appropriate across town and other areas of town. And I understand, and I feel horrible for you guys, I do. But I'm not gonna be able to change that there's a project going into this area. And so I might as well get it through so that it doesn't happen elsewhere in town.
And for me, looking at just the expenditure and just getting the most bang for the buck for my vote, like what would change? You know, I think that this is a good use of this fund. This is what it was supposed to be used for. The Affordable Housing Committee voted. It's going to move us almost half of the points that we need to get to our next moratorium. I mean, that is what we've heard from.
Can she start building without this money?
Yes.
Sure.
Well, she could find out.
Yes, I mean, I think that
It's not the
she.
town's money then. She can find it somewhere
I
else.
think that it benefits of the town for this project, which is going to be moving forward, to move forward sooner rather than later, so it gets built in time for it to count to the next moratorium. Because what I've heard from our Director of Economic Development, and in speaking to other members, our planning director, that while there's approved projects in the pipeline for that next moratorium, we don't know if they're gonna get built or not. We have a pathway forward to get this project built. It's not 5 stories. This is what it looks like. And it is.
That's not what it looks like on the website. The rendering on the website. So.
And it's going to be all affordable and meeting the needs of our young families, adults with intellectual disabilities, and our seniors. So looking at, and I don't want to minimize what you've said at all, and I share the pain, but looking at the needs of our entire community, that's the approach that I'm going to take this vote today. And I appreciate that it's going to be unpopular, and next election, we'll remember it. And I'm sure that you will, and it may, and that is absolutely your right to do. I absolutely appreciate that is what government is. You have the discussion and you vote. Sometimes the vote is popular with some people and sometimes it's not. And believe me, I wish that I could vote yes and make everybody happy with every vote that I made, but whatever it's been, 8 years of public service, that is not the way, it has not always worked out that way.
Christine, can I make a motion to table?
You can make a motion to table, Ms. Kupchak. A motion to table, do we have a second? No, motion to table does not carry. We'll take it back to the board for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 201. Thank you all for coming.
Agenda, right? That's okay, you can have it.
For your comments.
Thank you. All right, we are moving on to number 14, approval of minutes. Here and approve the draft minutes of October 15th, 2025.
So moved.
Second?
Christine,
Yes?
can you wait for the room to clear? I can't really hear you.
Sure.
We have to leave?
I'm sorry, we still actually,
We still have a meeting.
We actually still have a meeting,
Oh,
so.
God bless you.
So we're not done.
All right, take care.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Where's your sweater?
Do your sweater.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, okay. Minutes, to hear and approve the draft minutes of October 15th, 2025.
So moved.
Have a second? Okay, any discussion?
No.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 3-0. Refunds, to consider and act on tax refunds as recommended by the tax collector in the amount of $69,636.
Second, so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Okay. Moving on to First Selectmen, early voting.
Christine, can I interrupt a moment?
You may.
I apologize. As you know, I zoomed in because my husband had knee replacement and
Yeah.
a little medical emergency here this weekend.
Okay.
He had to go to the
Okay.
hospital, and I've left him alone now
no.
for 4 hours, and I have to.
Okay, understood, Ms. Kupchak. Sorry, hope everything.
Good luck to him.
Good luck,
Thank
good
you
luck.
very
to him.
much.
And you as caregiver.
Oh, and I appreciate that, Marcy, more than you know.
Yes.
All right, ladies, have a good
All
evening.
right,
Thanks so much.
thank you. All right, polls will open at 6 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. on Election Day, November 4th. Early voting began on October 20th and will run through Sunday, November 2nd, which is daylight savings, so remember to turn your clocks back. There will be no early voting on Monday, November 3rd. Early voting is occurring at the Fairfield University Bookstore in our downtown. More detailed Election Day information can be found in the alert box labeled voting information, which can be found on the bottom right of the town website's homepage. The John S. Turner U.S. Army Reserve Center. Ms. Kupchak asked for an update at the last meeting.
You want to move it to next?
Well, it's really kind of quick. We really don't have much of an update. We're waiting to hear back from the federal government. We're just waiting. The testing has been done, but we just need the okay to abandon the wells. Just a comment was made about housing at this project, at this site. This site cannot be used for housing. It is earmarked for recreational use, so just putting it out there. Forgot to mention that later. The library survey, in partnership with Fairfield University Center for Social Impact, our public library is conducting a community-wide survey to understand how it can best serve its users now and in the future. Contained in the 10-minute online survey are questions about patron use of library services, level of satisfaction with the existing programs and resources, and ideas for improvements and future priorities. The survey is confidential and all responses will be reported in aggregate. No personal identifying information will be collected. The survey can be found in the October 23rd, 2025 newsletter and on the public library's webpage. So I encourage everybody to fill that out. Honor a veteran and sponsor flag in the Field of Valor. The Kiwanis Club of Fairfield is sponsoring the annual Field of Valor ceremony on November 2nd at 2 p.m. Right here on the Post Road and North Benson intersection. This is to honor our veterans and people currently serving. At least 350 full-size flags will be on display at Jennings Park for 2 weeks. To sponsor a flag in the Field of Valor and honor Homes for the Brave, you can order a flag online, and the name of your honoree and your name as sponsor will be proudly displayed on a yellow card attached to the flag. The cost of sponsorship is $30 per flag. For more information, please visit the Kiwanis Club of Fairfield at www.fairfieldkiwanis.org/flag. Announcements. Wishing everybody a safe and happy Halloween.
Yes.
Any announcements?
No.
And I don't think we have a meeting before that, but Fairfield Ludlow High School, just in the spirit of Veterans Day, they host a Veterans Day concert every year at 7 p.m. I don't have the date. So check out the website. There more information will be coming about that. Encourage all veterans to go. It's a wonderful concert, patriotic songs, and we honor our veterans at that concert. We now have a motion to go into executive session. Executive session with Attorney Christian M. Chikela and Attorney Catherine Rule to discuss pending claim litigation, Jennifer G. Giordano versus the Town of Fairfield et al. Possible action to approve an agreement after executive session. Can I have a motion?
Make a motion.
I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're in executive session. Just need to ask, thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Everybody's back in. We'll unlock.
Recording in progress.
Okay. All right, can I have a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are out of executive session, no action or votes were taken. Can I have a motion to approve the settlement agreement as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 2-0. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 2-0, we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.